Um, we've been talking a lot around Gangplank, a number of us, about, how do we kind of move things forward? How do we get people to get more engaged and to be more functional? And one of the things that we see a lot of times is people do not know how to manage their work and their stress and a number of things to be effective. And so we started to peel back the kind of layers and say, what does it really take? What can we do that would be useful to people to help them unlock more productivity? And so one of the things I've done for a really long time is GTD, which is getting things done. Has anybody here heard of getting things done like this system? Okay, so some people know what GTD is or heard of it. Okay, another thing for a living, I do coaching for Scrum, for Agile, for Lean kind of methodologies for software development, which are all sorts of kind of productivity hacks when you're working in teams to deliver complex deliverables such as software. Right? And so as part of that, there's something called personal Kanban. You may have heard of Kanban. You may have heard of Lean Production Systems, or TPS, which is kind of the whole how Toyota does manufacturing in their plants, which obviously was wildly successful in the 70s and was adopted in the mid-80s, early 80s here in the States, and trying to compete with kind of Japanese production. So there's a group that's kind of started to apply some of those principles to daily personal life. And so as part of that, I want to go over some of the systems. I don't think there's any right answers. I think the principles are somewhat universal. I personally am a huge fan of GTD, and I'll tell you why I prefer it over some of the other things that are out there. But I think it's also a little more heavyweight than some of the other ones. So it might be, right now you're not in a space that you want something that's a little bit, that requires a little bit more discipline. So maybe you want something a little bit more lightweight, which is why I want to show there's more than one way to skin the cat. I also want to talk about why it's important. I think people think that it's important to do stuff. And so a lot of you are probably in this class because you want to do more stuff. But I think part of getting things done and Kanban and these other things aren't necessarily solely about efficiency. They're also about unlocking different parts of who you are and what you're capable of that you can't even potentially imagine right now because you're so stressed and so busy about trying to get the stuff done that is weighting you down. Right? So there's some other pieces to that. At any point, stop me. I hope to not talk a ton. I know I'm very wordy, so I will talk quite a bit. I'm hoping that we can turn this into some practical workshop pieces. So I'm hoping to probably not go much more than an hour and a half with some kind of interactive dialogue and showing some demonstrations of kind of some things that are some best practices or some things that I do. But I also want to make it very real that if you've got the ability, you've got some things, you've got some questions about how would I apply this, here's my situation, how would it work for me, that we can get very real with some of that stuff. I'm also, if there's interest afterwards, I think what I might do is make this a weekly kind of thing where I'll set up, if you want to come back weekly and say, hey, I'm trying to implement this, I'm struggling with this, or I give you my email address, maybe we'll set up a group or do something that we can exchange from that, because I think a lot of this stuff is really hard, because it sounds like, oh yeah, I can totally do this, it's all great, and then you go hit real life and it's like, whoa, how do I deal with this thing that we never talked about? And it's like, and so I stopped, and we have this perfectionist inside of us. I'm assuming if you're here, you probably have some of this inside you, where it's like, well, it's going so great on Monday and then Tuesday, and then I get this size because I have that problem with food. Like, oh yeah, I ran 3 miles, I did this, and it's like I ate one French fry out of my kid's thing. It's like, well, since I ate a French fry, like I might as well eat the Whopper and get the Frosty, and we do that in our productivity life too, where it's like, I fell off the wagon, so I might as well just complete bankruptcy and throw it all out, right? So we need some of that support. So, I really started thinking about this. I started thinking, why is it so hard for us? Why is it so difficult? And I think mostly it's difficult because we procrastinate, right? So why do we procrastinate? What is it that makes us procrastinate? What do you guys think? What do you guys think makes us procrastinate? Yeah, these things, but why? When we say regain control, what do we mean by that? What do you think that means? Why would you procrastinate to regain control?
Responsibility.
To what?
Fear of responsibility.
Fear of responsibility. Right? That probably falls a little more under fear of failure. But regain control. When might you procrastinate to regain control?
Direction. When you kind of lost direction.
We lost direction?
Yeah, just one of the day was like, I just have too much going on, and there's just too much. I'll just deal with this later. I'll deal with it tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that's, but you could be saying that for any one of these. Who has kids? Who here's asked your kid to do something? Clean a room, maybe. Put a dish in the dishwasher, right? Now, I know that my kids are the only ones that don't do it right when I ask them to do it, and I've maybe got to ask them 9 or 10 or 15 times, and maybe I have to escalate my voice a little bit. Maybe I have to threaten to get them to do it. I know I'm the only one that does that. But if you can imagine that your children might do this to you, what do you think they're doing by not doing it right away?
Staying in control.
Yeah, they're staying in control. Hey, I want you to take the trash out. Okay, right when I'm done killing this bad monster in my video game. Right? Why do you think they do that? Why do you think they procrastinate for that? Because that's their way of asserting, I don't want to do this. You're making me do this. I'm going to do it on my timeline, because if I do that, then who owns it? Me. You do this at work. You do this in your personal life. Somebody asks you to do something that you don't want to do. One of your defense mechanisms is, okay, I'll show you, I'll do it when I want to do it. You're procrastinating, not because you're afraid, not because you're fearful, but because you want to show them who the hell's boss. I'm boss. I'll do it when I want to do it. It's a reason that we procrastinate. Fear of failure. Why do we procrastinate over failure? When we're afraid. Why do we procrastinate when we're afraid of failing?
Because we're afraid to fail.
I know, but by procrastinating, what do we gain by avoiding?
You're pushing it back.
If you don't do it, can you fail at it?
Nope.
No, right? When we're afraid of failing, we procrastinate because if I don't do it, I can't fail. Right? I think one of the best neuroscientists on this, and I can't remember her exact name, she's got a book on mindset. A lot of people with fixed mindsets say like, hey, my mindset is I have to perform, I have to be perfect, and if I don't do that, right, I'm a failure. And so a lot of times what they'll do is you'll self-sabotage, right? So maybe I'm an international soccer player and I just got promoted and I'm 18 years old and I get my first crack on the pitch and my hamstring's bothering me. I don't think I can go out, coach, and I think I'm going to need to wait on the day. Why would I do that? Well, because if I go out there and I suck, it's over. But if I just got a hamstring and I delay it and I can do it, then like it wasn't that I sucked. It's that like, oh, my hamstring was hurt. Like next season I'll go out and do it. Right? Mm-hmm. We do the same thing with our work. We do the same thing with things in our life, where we say, man, I'm afraid I'm going to fail at that, so I'm going to delay it. And I'm going to get satisfaction from delaying it, because in the short term, it works. In all three of these scenarios, in the short term, procrastination works. Problem is it doesn't work in the long term. And the problem is we're idiots and we are wired for the short term. Fear of success. Why would we procrastinate for the fear of success?
And people just want more. Comfort zone.
People just want more of it. Comfort zone.
It's change.
It's change. What happens if at work you go out and you do this stuff and you really execute and your boss says, awesome, we're promoting you to regional director and now you have to move to Montana or Louisiana or wherever else, and you're going like, whoa, I'm going to have to pull all my kids out of school. I'm going to have the, whatever that thing is. Like, what if you're really successful? What does that mean? Right? Some of it might be fear. The part of success is the unknown of what success is going to bring. Right? It might be like, well, if this really sucks, man, now it's going to really eat all my time, and I'm not going to be able to do this. Any number of things, right? So I think these are three of the reasons that we procrastinate. And I think it's important to understand for a couple of reasons. So how would you potentially go about starting to break down procrastination? How do you start to combat some of this stuff?
Routines.
Routines. Habits, right?
Lists and accountability.
Lists and accountability.
Well, just acknowledging those factors.
Just knowing they exist. So self-awareness. right? I mean, I think this is something that, for whatever reason, they don't teach us in school, but we are the most ignorant people when we come to ourselves. You know, we always say like, oh, so-and-so could see it in you in a minute. How come we fail to see the things in ourselves? And it's because we don't take the time to observe ourselves, right? So one of the things that, and the colors on these are really bad. So one of the things that I did recently is I said, I want to understand how I'm wired and how I work. So I'm going to do a 30-day experiment, and that's about what it takes to make a habit. And I'm not saying go do this. This is just, I wanted to, as part of the discussions when I said that a lot of us around Gangplank are talking about a lot of these things and how do we make the most out of who we are, how do we become better at what we do, how do we really push ourselves. The first thing I said is I have to understand me. And Jay's going to do a class in a couple weeks on core protocols. One of the core protocols is, now my brain just died on me, basically personal alignment, where you say like, what do I want? Right? And what I came out of the personal alignment with is I want to be able to be self-aware. And so I said as part of self-awareness, I'm going to purposefully do things that make me aware of how I work and how I behave. So what I did is I came out and I said, I'm going to run this little experiment. And I've been reading a couple of books about flow and about passive volition and about how to basically hack our mind into being more productive. And so one of the things that came up was kind of this concept of flow and how do we get into flow, and if we're prepared and if we have the right mind going into that we do a lot more. So I said, well, I want to know when I'm in flow state. I want to know when I'm rocking, when it's cruising, when I'm like really blistering and getting stuff punched off that list versus when I'm not getting that done. Right? So I created this little thing and I said, okay, well, I've got this thing where it's flow, where I'm really like, I've got my to-do list in front of me and I am a terminating machine that is just punching things off of this thing, lights out, right? This is Michael Jordan time, eyes closed, everything's going in the bucket. We are in the zone. Okay? And I had this little one, I call it meetings, but it's not really fair. It's kind of meetings and non-flow. If you work around other people, people come up and say, hey, I've got, whatever, and you end up spending 15 minutes helping them do something. So it might not be like a structured meeting, but it's look, I'm being productive. I'm not totally wasting my time. I'm not spinning my wheels, but I'm not laser-like focused doing my work, my punch list. Okay? And then I've got this thing over here is fun. So another thing that I read a lot about is that we have to be able to build in self-reward systems so that when we are the Terminator, that we get to be the bozo too. And I'm real big on that. So it's like, okay, I need to make sure that when I do this for 30 days, that I don't become the asshole that everybody in my house hates because I'm miserable, because I'm not having fun, because I'm trying to prove a point that I'm awesome. Right? Like, that's not good for me, it's not good for anybody else. So I said, I need to make sure I have that in there and I count that separate. So when this box is over here is empty during the day, I know I need to go do something to fix that. Okay, so each one of these little boxes is 15 minutes. So I actually set a timer. Those of you who have seen me, I actually set a timer that goes off every 15 minutes and shuts my computer, pretty much renders it completely useless until I do something to shut it and move on. Right? So I was able to kind of capture all these. So then this is the total. Right? So it's like, okay, 3¼ hours, 1.75, 1.25. If I add all those up, I'm at 6.25 hours. But I was recording myself from 6:30 to 5, which is 10.5 hours. So I had 4.25 of idle time. Okay? So we hear people all the time say, I worked an 8-hour day. Well, you might have been. My clicker died. I might have worked 10.5-hour day, but I was only effective 6.25, and that's kind of the meeting, my non-flow kind of meeting being part of something in my flow, right? That's not counting my fun, right? And it's not counting the idle time. Now, idle time might have been transition time. Maybe I was going from lunch to lunch, at lunch, whatever, right? If it was a lunch where it wasn't very fun, it wasn't fun time. If I went and I met with people and I had a good time, maybe that was where my fun time came in, right? And so I don't want to get too hung up on this because it's not the point of the talk. I think it's important. So like here's another one that is thanks, Jade. And so here's another one, just to prove that I didn't just go make one card. I've actually got a stack of like 40 of these on my desk. I started to paste them all over the wall. Right? Okay, so now I've got, flow, hey, only 2 hours, right? Not so great. 6 hours, like this is probably a brutal day for me. I probably went home pretty crabby at this day. And just a little bit of fun, and only 1.75 idle time. Now, And I said, okay, great. So I started to collect that data. And so after 30 days, I was able to go in and say, okay, how am I spending my time? I know now, right? Like I literally know, right? So I can say 49.3% of the time, I'm in some form of meetings or non-flow state where I'm actually doing some kind of productive work. So I'm probably collaborating with other people or doing things, right? I'm doing something, but I'm not getting the crap off of my list that weighs my ass down, okay? 23% of the time, I'm actually laser-like focused, getting that stuff knocked off. 21% of the time, I don't know what the hell I was doing. 21%! And let me put this in. I was trying to get an A. I was keeping track, so I knew that at the end of every day that the idle time was like, wow, how embarrassing. And it was still 21%. I would imagine if I wasn't doing that, this would probably be closer to 30, 40, 45. Because there were times where it's like, I'm not getting value out of this meeting, I gotta cruise because I don't want my idle time to go up anymore, right? Like, because I can't count this as meeting because we're just sitting here bullshitting about how the Diamondbacks played last night, and that doesn't count for nothing, and it ain't fun, bye. Right? If I didn't do that, this pie chart would look slightly different. And then I just had this little itty bitty sliver of fun, 6%. Now that said, this was not accounting for my whole day. So I was only doing this, I do a lot of contract work, so I was only kind of doing this from like pretty much the time I got up and I engaged in my first interaction with another human being until basically I would go home. Now usually when I go home, I put another 5 or 6 hours in on top of it. I didn't keep track of that just because I wanted to be consistent. My lab was kind of at the office I was at, so I didn't have all my stuff, so it just made sense. But it'd probably be even worse because I watch TV at home, so the idle time probably would have gone a hell of a lot higher. And I'm not very fun at home, so. But my point is, know yourself, right? If you want to know how to combat yourself, you have to know yourself. So how do you overcome it? You have to know what you want, right? Really, really hard to be effective if you don't know what the hell you're trying to do. What's the thing you want to do? What is it that you want to achieve? What's your purpose? You don't know that, it'll be really hard to be motivated to do anything about it. Okay? If I told you, why don't you go start digging a hole over there, you're probably not going to be real motivated. Even if I paid you money, at a certain point, you'd be like, this is stupid, I'm digging a hole. Right? Have to know why. And the other thing is you have to take action. Like a lot of these, you read a lot of the science books on this stuff, is do anything. Like anything is better than being the deer in the headlights going, do something. Take action. So this kind of jumps us right into where we're at, right? So that's kind of the lead up to where we're at. So now, how the hell do you take action? How do you define what it is that you want to do? Right? We know kind of some of the science and some of the reasons behind why we don't do things. Now, how do we get into the habit of doing it? Right? So I'm going to talk about personal Kanban. So personal Kanban kind of takes the approach of you have these like 3 bare elements. And it tries to be really simple and say, just do the stuff you've always done, just make it visible. So like Kanban's all about visibility. Make it visible, and if it's visible and it's in your face, it forces you to deal with it. Kind of like me with my stupid little cards. It's in my face, I have to pay attention to it, I have to take what's in there, I have to process it. Right? So it says that the first thing you have is you have to show what work needs to be done. We said take action. What action are we going to take, right? Know what to do. I'm going to do all these things. So, I need to clean my room, I need to do laundry, I need to get the dog groomed, I need to finish the report, whatever that list of things are. They call it a backlog. I've got a backlog of items. This is the stuff pending for me to do. Okay? Then I have to say, what is it that I'm currently doing? Right? So I have to take things and put them into the doing side. We call that work in process. WIP. Okay? And then you have to show how efficient that workflow is or what the throughput is. Right? That's the last part of Kanban. Right? You're able to visualize it. So you've got something that says, like, here's what's done. Right? So we would look at it and it would look something like this. Right? I've got this little personal Kanban. Here's my backlog of all the things I need to do. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what's done. Right? Now Now the great thing is you can get more complicated than that. Great thing about Kanban is just do what you're doing. Right now, who here has a list of stuff? And I don't mean necessarily physical list. Who here knows they have stuff to do? Okay? Who here, when they're doing it, knows that they're doing it? And who here, when they're done doing it, knows that it's done? Okay? So everybody right now does Kanban. You're just not visualizing it. All Kanban says is do what you're already doing, visualize it. And what this starts to do is, man, if you've got 6,000 things in here, what's that going to do? Maybe it's going to make you say, I'm taking on too much crap. Like the reality of if I've got 6,000 things in this column, maybe I need to throw 5,940 of them in the trash. Whatever that number is, right? And what happened if you had 50 things in this column? Trying to do too much crap at one time. No wonder you can't finish anything. You're like, oh boy, I got to do. I mean, you can't get. You don't even know where you're at. You feel like the pinball, right? You're just bouncing around between the things here to do, and somebody's probably throwing new things in, right? And your done column lets you know, like, hey, I'm actually having throughput, right? Maybe if I've got a lot of things in here and a lot of things in here, but there's a lot of things in here, maybe I'm healthy. I could have nothing. I could have one thing in here, one thing in here, and if I'm not getting anything in here, something's going on. Maybe these things are too big. Maybe I need to break them down into smaller things. I have one thing in my backlog, win at life. What am I doing? Attempting to win at life. How far have I got? I have no idea. Probably need to break it down, right? So just visualize it. Okay, so again, I like to hack. I'm fortunate enough, I've got some teenagers at home, I've got some preteens at home, and I have a wife that's silly enough to listen to me sometimes. And so one of the things we do is we do kind of pull and whip limits. So one thing is you pull from one column to the next column, pull from one next column. They call that pull. Right? The other thing is whip limit. So one of the things you can start to do is up front you just say, just do what you've always done. Right? So just do these things, do what you've always done. And then what you can do is you can start to apply pressure to the system that forces you to deal with problems. So you can start to say, hey, I'm only going to allow myself to do 2 things at any given time. Well, the minute I do that, if I get 2 things and both of these are blocked, what do I have to do if my limit is 2? I have to unblock them. Right? So many of us in life, what we do is it's like, oh, I'm waiting on so-and-so. I mean, we make like the little happy-to-do excuses because you know what it is? It's a form of procrastination. Right? I see this at work all the time. Well, I ask so-and-so, I say, you know what? One of the most effective pieces of dealing with this is like, well, I asked so-and-so and they didn't give me. It's like, so you've been waiting for 3 days to get an email from so-and-so of the location of this thing on the server. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, we're going to go get that done right now. And I get the funniest look, like, yeah, right. Keith never, ever gives us it. It takes forever. It's okay. So I come over. And I have whoever that has this problem with me. And I'll say, hey, Keith, Tim says he needs this locate. What was it he needed, Tim? Oh, you needed the password thing? Can you get that for him? And what do you think his response is going to be? I mean, he's already taken 6 days to do this. What do you think his response is going to be? I'll get it to you in a little bit. Okay, great. Well, I'm just, I want to make sure that we get it. So as soon as we get it, we'll leave you alone. Right? 9 times out of 10, Keith's going to take the 2 seconds it takes him to do it, to get it, and send him on his way. Right? So we do this all the time in life, is we have the power to get the things that we want, but we procrastinate by going like, oh, well, so-and-so, I just couldn't do anything about it, so like, I'll just grab the next thing, and I'll just grab the next thing. And pretty soon I've got 20 things in here that are all waiting on somebody else. Totally poor little me, it's out of my control, can't do anything. It's not my fault, and my life is chaotic, and I'm dependent on all these other people. BS, you can fix those problems, but only if you force yourself to. So whip limit is a way to force that constraint, where it says like, I can do nothing unless I fix these problems. Right? And maybe part of it is like, hey, I don't want to depend on Keith anymore, so I'm going to put some things over in this backlog so I never have to depend on him again. Remove some of that insanity from your life.
Yeah, Keith.
Yes, Keith. He's a college student. So at home, I decided we had all sorts of problems at home, as you can imagine with teenage girls. And so we said, like, how are we going to solve this? There's so many issues. So let's try to hack it. Why not? And you know what my lovely bride said to me? don't you throw your work stuff on me. And then you know what my kid said? Dad, you're trying to work us. Okay, you win. You're right. So you can't see it very well here, but here in this swim lane is a backlog. So this is all the items for the family. We're not a cross-functional team yet. Those of you that know what that is can potentially laugh at those. Those of you that don't, it means that anybody on the team is capable of doing any of the work. So while I am cross-functional, I am able to do laundry and I am able to do dishes, my daughters are not able to do dog poop, or at least they say that that is the brother's job. So we wanted to go to just a cross-functional board where we had one simple column that said, in progress. That wasn't fair. So I had to come up with, how do I combat this? I have a team that is dysfunctional, that refuses to be cross-functional, and thinks that it's not fair that they have to do other people's work. Kids. So we said, let's make an in-progress lane for everybody in the family. So mom's got a lane, dad's got a lane, son's got a lane, and each one's got a lane, and we've got our done column over here. I loaded his pictures at the end of Saturday after I cracked the whip on them, so we got a lot of stuff done that day. Okay. So what this did is this allowed us to say, hey, here's this body of work that anybody can pull from. And so for the most part, people still pull their stuff. Like, I did not see any of the kids make the bed for the other kids' room. They pulled their own. But I did see some horse trading kind of going on, saying like, well, I've already got the vacuum, so I'll go ahead and vacuum the stairs, but, why don't you do the cat litter instead? Right? Where it's like, hey, normally that wouldn't happen, but it started to happen because, they're trying to be efficient. A little empowerment, right? We won't go too much team stuff, but it's, nice common board. Okay, the second part that we had is schedules. Man, we got kids going every freaking direction. I'm going every direction. I travel a lot. And my kids play competitive sports and their schedule changes on a minute's notice. They travel a lot. And so a lot of our problems we had scheduling problems. Which is great. We'll fix the schedule. So it's like, I don't know, well, let's hack it. I don't know. This is totally made up. I don't know. Somebody else might have done this before. We just talked it through and said, how can we do this? And we said, well, what's really important is we just need to know what we're doing for this week. If we could just know what the hell's going on this week, that would be infinitely better. Like, the problem with this big giant calendar and a digital solution and trying to solve that for everybody just doesn't work because everybody's not digital. My wife does not want to use a digital calendar. My kids are not responsible enough to use a digital calendar. Right? I get mad because nobody looks at my digital calendar. So we said, how can we solve this? So, what we did is we got Monday, Tuesday, we got each day of the week, and then we just so it's like if you've got something going on that you're dependent on somebody else for, or you're dependent on a resource of some kind, you put it up here. And what we do is we do daily check-ins. And again, Jade will be doing the thing on core protocols. Daily check-in is one of them. And it's a way to function as a team where we can, every single night, we go through and we have a check-in. And as part of the check-in, we say, hey, is there anything on the calendar? So in a lot of these, if it's something for the kids, we put who's dropping off and who's picking up. Because that used to be the number one source of fights in my family. Amazingly, that is the biggest thing after 20 years of marriage me and my wife fight about. I thought you said you were picking them up. No, you said you were picking them up. No, I don't pick them up on Tuesday. You pick them up on Tuesday. Where am I picking them up from? How can we fight about it? It's the stupidest shit on the planet. So we get on full-on boxing matches over whose job it is to pick it up. It solves it. Man, it's amazing. It's like ding gold. Right? Now, I'll tell you one other little story on this one. It's just great. You know what else is a problem in my house? We're on a damn time use plan for energy, which means you get to use your washing machine for 2 hours when human beings are up and walking. And you got 2 daughters that don't want their laundry touching each other's laundry, and mom's not allowed to do their laundry because that means mom will go in their room and touch their stuff. But nobody coordinates it. So you know what one of the biggest fights in my family between my wife and the girls are? Who the hell gets to use the washing machine? And you know who wins every time? Mom. But you know what happens before mom wins? Everybody's miserable. You know what happens after mom wins? Everybody's miserable. So I said, hey, why don't we do this? Since mom wins anyways, mom gets to use the washing machine whenever mom wants. But if you want to use the washing machine, as long as you put it up on the board before 24 hours before the time, before the night before, then you can supplant mom's usage of the washing machine. We've not had a fight about the washing machine for 6 months. It's an act of God. I don't know how it happened, but it's because people started to talk. Okay? We're able to get things done. So anyways, this kind of sidebar. human dynamic stuff. This is, like, it's simple stuff. Like, if somebody would have told me it's that simple, I would have been like, yeah, right. And then you see, it's like, it really is that simple. These are not, our brains are pretty tiny. We're pretty dumb. We're pretty lizard-like. We can trick ourselves pretty good. So now, any questions on Kanban? Any questions on anything we've gone through so far?
Kanban sounds like it's basically just an existence system of some sort. You've got post-it notes with, is that pretty much it?
Yeah, it's visualizing what's already happening. So you already have stuff you need to do. You already have stuff you're doing. Hopefully you have some stuff you're completing. You're visualizing that. You're putting constraints on the work in process that allow you to basically improve what you're doing. That's a very simplified version of it, right? That'll get you up and running, get you going. If you want to start to improve, there's all sorts of other things you need to start doing to do reflection and to be able to, kind of retrospect on what's going on, to be able to adjust, add lanes, do different things to try to manipulate to get it better. But up front, it's just getting a visual, getting it there, getting it in your face, getting it done. You can also do it in software. It doesn't have to be physical.
Is there a source of that term?
Kanban is something that came from like Toyota Production System has been morphed over into software. Some of the software folks that are using it said, hey, we could do this for our personal life, created personal Kanban. There's a book on it. I've got resources on this that I'll give you guys that will have all that stuff where you can go read, a full book on it. You search the term online, you'll find lots of people doing it.
I'd read it if I had time.
We'll get you there. We'll get you there. Any other questions on this before we start to deep dive into getting things done?
Where do you post this? Do you have it on your fridge, or what do you do?
So this is actually, if you look at...
With electric tape, or what do you do? You just hang it?
Uh-oh, this one died too?
No, you keep pushing the laser.
It's still blinking.
It's
So this right here is just like frog tape or master painter's tape, whatever this is. I don't know, it's the blue painter's tape. And this is just a wall, stuck a wall. Super stickies, always 3M super stickies. You can buy the generic Walmart brand, they're a little bit cheaper. And Sharpies.
And then pick them up off the floor all day long.
I'm lucky in that I have a wall that's pretty smooth like this. It's not quite as bumpy, so they stick pretty good. I've seen another guy on our team did this. His wife was having a baby, so they did this for like baby prep. For like, hey, we need to get everything ready. Count down to babiness, like what needs to happen. And they just did this on their glass patio door. Just kind of put it up on their glass patio door in one of their things. So you can put it wherever, right? Like doesn't really matter. Doesn't have to be this. It could be, if you want to hang a cork board or you want to draw on a whiteboard, if you have a whiteboard, if you want to do it in a software system. I'm a big fan. I mean, the downside of not doing it digital is that you can't deal with it when you're not there. So like this is only for our home stuff. Like all my personal stuff is somewhere else because I need something that goes with me. I can't use a physical board because I'm not in the same physical space more often than not. But for like home, this works great. Like everything that's pretty much on this board happens at home. Or if there's things that's not, you can basically take the card off. Or it's like, hey, I'm going to go to the, I need to go to the grocery store or something. Hey, boom, I can go do that. Right? Other questions? Okay. So getting things done. So this is going to be pretty much straight from David Allen, who is author of Getting Things Done. I'll go through it somewhat quick because I'd rather show you some kind of hands-on stuff and be able to field more direct questions about how this relates to what you guys are doing. But I want to make sure that I give you enough breadth of it that you understand what it really encompasses. So getting things done, his big thing is work, life, balance. Okay? But it's not really balance, it's a management system. Right? So to me, my belief, not necessarily David's, is that there is no real separation of work and life. Right? Like, you don't say like, I'm stopping life and crawling out of my life body and going to work. Like, you might not like what you do for work, right? It might not be your end all, but at the end of the day, it's you, right? You're at work. So regardless, those things, especially in this age where things are way more digital, things are much more virtualized, it's very difficult to separate when you're working, when you're not working, unless you're probably doing some kind of physical labor with your hands where you're not near technology or not near other people. Otherwise, those things start to get mingled pretty quickly. Right? So I like to say, you know, and I think David says it's really a management system. It's a life management system. Okay? So is this for you? Right? Does your life feel like this? Most of you probably don't have paper anymore. Most of you don't have desks, but does this feel like your head sometimes? Right? Yeah, no, maybe. Assuming if you're here, you either had no clue and you're walking in like, who's this crazy guy? Or you feel overwhelmed. That stuff is stacking up, that you're not getting the stuff done that you want to get done. You're probably frustrated. You probably feel like, you know, somebody calls you and asks and you're like, I know it's in a paper somewhere around here, but I'm not sure I can find it. Or, man, I thought I saw that come across the email. Damn, I knew I should have done something about it. Right? That kind of stuff, right? So, you know, are you driven by the latest and loudest? Are you unsure about what I am doing? Are you unaware of what I am not doing? My inventory of actions is incomplete and out of date. My intuition is inaccessible. Okay, does this explain you at all? I like to say this right here is when we just deal with emergency. And you know what happens when we do that? Is it just creates more emergencies. Okay? So if I'm eating unhealthy, and I'm getting to be this size, I'm probably not doing some really good things to my heart. Okay? But I go and I cut my finger, and it hurts, and I'm a crybaby. And so I go to the doctor, and I said, my finger hurts, it got cut. And they said, that's really great. Like, we'll put some antiseptic on and put a Band-Aid on it. But man, you're a little overweight. You should maybe take care of that. So don't you understand how bad my finger hurts? Right? This little cut is not going to kill me. The heart attack will kill me. But what am I focused on? I'm focused on the little cut and the next little cut. We do this with our time management. When we pay attention to the pain signal that is the loudest, that does not mean it's the pain signal that's the most important. And when we stop doing what is important and we just start responding to stimulus that is painful, we lose our ability to be intuitive about where we're going and how we're going to get there and to manipulate the things around us. Which leads us to being entirely overwhelmed, that puts us in the safest thing we can do. What is our painkiller at that point? What is our painkiller when we have this going on?
Procrastination.
Procrastination! Man, it is a damn good drug. It's like crack cocaine. It feels good. It puts us back in control. Seriously, why do you think people abuse substances? It gives them control. As silly as that sounds, even though it makes them out of control, it makes them feel in control. Procrastination makes us feel in control. So when we feel that we are total slaves to whatever is out there requiring our attention, and we've got no ability to manage that anymore, we get to a point where we say, damn it, it hurts and I want it to stop. What's the nearest painkiller? Procrastination. Right? What division just makes the pain, like, what happens if you've got, half your head cut open and you take morphine, feels fine, until the morphine wears off and then it hurts like a bitch again and you gotta take more. That's what procrastination is. So what happens is our procrastination gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse because it takes more and more and more to numb this. Because when we numb it, these things that are loud are not going away. They're just getting louder. Right? Those of you that have kids, right? You ask them to take the trash out. The first time, it's probably pretty nice. Can you take the trash out? Second time, it's like, it's been 20 minutes. Can you take the trash out? The third time, you escalate your loudness. Right? And at some point, they're like, it's not worth the control. I don't want to be beat today. I'm going to take the trash out. Okay? But it gets worse and worse. Right? You let them get away, it gets worse and worse. So the goal of getting things done is how do you start to transform overridden and overloaded into stress-free productivity? Right? So how do you manage your commitments? How do you manage information? How do you manage communication? Right? So when we look at Kanban, that's what we're really talking about, right? There's all sorts of information up there. Right? There's all sorts of commitments, right? We're talking about who is supposed to pick people up. That's a commitment, right? My wife was mad at me because I didn't pick my daughter up when she thought that I made a commitment. I probably didn't. I just forgot about it. Okay? It's about communication. How do we make the communication better? Right? So he's got a couple of key points. So key number one is capture. Capture, 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 capture. Any and everything that has your attention. You have to capture it. You have to put it in a system that you trust. Because our brains are little peon lizard brains that they know when there is stimulus wanting our attention. But the problem is they can only hold so much capacity. So when you start to get inputs, okay, you ask me something, I go, okay, I'll remember to do that. You ask me, okay, I'll remember to do that. Pretty soon, my brain says, okay, buffer overflow, I can't hold anymore, you gave me 10 things to remember, I'm stressed. And then the 11th person comes in, what do you think I do? I throw one of them in the trash and I put the 10th one in. Then what's going to happen? That person's going to get louder because I'm going to forget it. And they're going to come back and say, hey, I haven't heard from that email yet. What's going on? I really need an answer. You're like, oh, I'm so sorry. I saw it come in. And I thought, And after a while, we're good to procrastinate. We just tell the lies. Oh, all right, the email box must have eaten that. I'm having all sorts of email problems in damn Gmail. Right? But we do it. We've all done it before. Don't tell me you haven't. Right? So you have to capture it, and you have to capture it in somewhere where you know and you trust that your brain can let it go. Because what happens is when you throw that one piece away, your brain doesn't remember the piece, but it remembers that somebody wants it. And so what happens is all day long, who here has had that nagging feeling, I know I'm forgetting something? You know why your brain says that? Is you threw something out of the buffer into the trash, and your brain said, ooh, I got a pointer to that. And then later on, you're like, ooh, pointer. And you're like, but where is it? What was it? Oh, and you're like, literally want to like crawl out of your skin because you know I know I'm supposed to be somewhere. I know I'm supposed to be doing something. I can't remember what. Because you thought you could, but your brain threw it away. Now remembered it threw it away. It's smart enough to take. So what happens is, think of it as like a little program running in your brain. And what it's doing is it's trying to keep track of what's gotten thrown away, right? So what do you think happens if you think of it like a computer? If you've got all this crap coming in that you're throwing away, and your brain's trying to keep track of all, what do you think your brain's doing? What is it? And it's processing, right?
It's overheating.
Well, what happens to your computer when you start up something that takes a lot of processing? What? Heats up. What else? It slows down, right? So if I go start Adobe Creative Suite 3 and it just sucks all the memory, right? And then I'm like, hey, let's fire up Warcraft. And then it's like, I want to do one little thing. And it's like, man, beach ball heaven. Like, this thing is taking forever. This computer sucks. It's slow, right? Your brain does the same thing, right? So if it gets on overfire, man, it's taking everything in its possible thing to process and hold memory. Like, do you think you're effective at anything you're doing? No, somebody's sitting here, right here, talking to you and going like, man, I got to remember when I go home. And my wife wants me to pick up the prescriptions before I get home. That is what is literally going through your brain all damn day long. You can't get anything done when that's rolling. Okay? So next thing you need to do is, hey, man, I've got this list of things. I've captured it. I need to define actionable things discretely into outcomes and concrete next steps. And I personally believe this is one of the biggest problems why people do not get things done, is they don't know how to decompose things into smallest actions. And when I talk to teams about this from a software perspective, we usually talk about it from terms of estimating how long is this going to take. And they're really bad at it. And the reason they're really bad at it is they don't know how to decompose it. The example I'll use is, I'm not really a mechanical guy, but I feel like if you give me instructions and let me swear enough, I can get anything done. And so if you all said, hey, I've got a 1972 Pontiac and the engine's broken and I want a new engine, how long would that take? And I'm thinking like, okay, like if we're going to buy a new engine, oh no, you can just go to a junkyard and get one that runs, Oh, okay, I can do that. I started to go like, oh, well, probably I'll take a day to go get it from junkyard, and then I'll probably, pick it up, put it in, probably maybe take a week or two. Maybe I know my buddy Don, he knows somebody, so maybe get him to come over. Maybe a couple weeks, tops, right? I'm thinking that, right? And so what do you think my checklist at this point is? I just kind of said it out loud. What do you think my checkpoint in my mind right now is for this engine?
Get it, put it in.
Did you come to get it? Right? And I said I was going to bring it back. So give me credit for that one. I said I was going to bring it back. I'm going to bring it back. And I'm going to call my buddy Don. And we're going to put it in. 4 steps. Woohoo! How many days did I say that was going to take? Several weeks. What are my chances for success? I got several weeks worth of work that I'm measuring with 4 items. Smell funny to you? Yeah. So this is what happens. All right. Go pick it up. I don't know where I'm picking it up from. Hey, you guys want to watch a baseball game? Right, why? Why am I procrastinating?
What wants to do?
No, man, the next action is not clear at all. So I'm probably going to fail because I don't know how to do it. So what am I going to do? I'm not going to start it. You know what my wife's going to do? Hey, how come you have Pontiac still in the garage? I thought it only takes 3 weeks to do. And my wife doesn't talk like that. She's more confident. She just get rid of it on her own. So, as part of this, it's like, okay, what do I do? And what's the real next action for me? What do I need to do to go get it?
Find out where to get her.
Find out where to get it. Who has a 1972 Pontiac engine? So what's the next step? What's the next action? Make a phone call. That's not small enough. What's the real next action?
Find the phone number.
Find the phone number. What's the real next action? Research where to find the phone number. Hey, we got the real next action. The real next action is find where to find the phone number. That sounds so abysmally small that who the hell would ever put that on their to-do list? You know who puts that on their to-do list? The people that get stuff done. Right? So first thing I need to do is find out where do I go find where an engine is. Once I found that out, what's the next step? I need to call them, see do they have it in stock. Once I have it in stock, what do I need to do? I need to go down and get it. And we're going to learn little things in life. Like the first time you go down to get an engine, you're just like, let's throw it on the back of the truck. And they go, this is a U-pull, buddy. Go ahead and go get it up. I need tools for this? Yeah? You got an engine lift too, right? What do you think just happened to me? It ain't happening in 3 weeks no more. Now what do I gotta do?
You gotta find out where to get an engine.
That's right. I gotta say, like, maybe I need to call my buddy Don now instead of when I get the engine back, because I got no idea how to get this out. And then I need to maybe ask somebody, where do I get an engine lift? Do I gotta buy one? I mean, it sounds really stupid, but this is why it's so hard for us to do stuff, is we think everything is just so easy, and then what really happens is we realize that, like, we just hit that wall, and it's like, well, crap, I don't really know what's next. But instead of saying, hey, let's break it down to what's really next, we go, that sounds hard. What's over here? Right? And we see that width limit start going, right? Because what is the real answer there? The real answer is, well, I can't do it because my buddy Don hasn't called me back and told me where I can get an engine for his 73 thing. As soon as he calls me back, then we'll take care of that. Right? You know what he's thinking? Like, I'm drinking beer. I ain't going to call you and go do an engine. Right? We do that all the time, right? It's not my fault. Like, hey, honey, I really want to get that out. I don't want to get the car out of the garage, but I mean, like, you know, I don't know where you can find one of those. Never heard of Google, right? So organize. So now kind of once you've got all this stuff, right, you have to learn how to organize your reminders, your information. You need to be able to streamline it. You need to be able to categorize it. You need to be able to work it, right? You need access to it. Right? So it's not just enough you have the list, right? If you just have a list of 1,000 things, like, you're just going to stare at it. If you're me, you're just going to go, that's a lot of stuff. Where do I start? Right? So you got to prioritize it. Got to categorize it. Got to do a bunch of great thing is this is one of the reasons I really like GTD over something like personal Kanban, is it gives you so much more depth into how you think about the work that you do. So Kanban is pretty simple and just says there's a lot of work to do, go do it. And it says, hey, if you want to get more complicated, you just figure out on your own how you want to categorize. GTD says, you're a novice, you're an idiot, if you were already getting stuff done, you wouldn't need me. So let me tell you how, if I was a novice, if I were a king for a day, this is how I would build all of these things in and do it that way. So I much prefer the approach of, I'm a dummy, tell me exactly how to do it, and as I do it, I'll find out what I like and what I don't like, and I'll adjust it accordingly. Throw out the things I don't like, do, but I'll do what you say for a certain amount of time. Okay. Now, the last thing is you need to be able to review. In frequent reviews, you're going to have 6 horizons of your commitments. We'll go over those. Those are purpose, vision, goals, areas of focus, projects, and actions. Right? So what I say the first thing you have to do in order to be able to get stuff done? Have to know your purpose. Have to know the vision. Have to know what it is you really want to do. Right? So hey, here's my purpose, here's my vision, here are my goals that I'm looking to do. Right? Okay, what areas of focus am I involved in? What are the projects that belong to those? And then what are the actions? Like the actions are the little tiny stuff down at the bottom. Right? So this system's going to give you a way to contextualize all of those things. And be able to put those into buckets and to review them. Right? And you should review your life on a pretty regular basis. Hey, am I still doing what I think I'm supposed to be doing? My goals changed at all. I don't know. My goals are not the same today as when I was 16 years old. Right? When I was 16, I think it was pretty much, God, please let me get out of high school. Right? And I don't have, that's not a goal right now. I did make that one. I did achieve, take that one off. Okay? But it's not a goal anymore. Right? When I had kids, my goals changed pretty radically. Right? So you need to be able to constantly review those. Right? So frequent review of all 6 horizons. Now, the frequency at which you review these is going to go from bottom to top, right? You're probably going to review what's most important for you to do, your actions, probably daily or more, right? Because that stuff changes quite a bit. Like, I mean, life comes at you, you know, big storm rolls in, blows your roof off. Your action's probably going to change. Probably not going to wait 30 days before you decide, like, do I have new stuff I need to do? Okay? But maybe your purpose in life you don't need to be reviewing every day. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But you don't necessarily have to review that. Right? So why GTD? Right? These reasons. Right? These reasons right here. To me, the most important reason, and the one that nobody really talks about when they talk about, I just want to get stuff done, it kills me because most people want to get stuff done for why? When you decided you wanted to come here today, why did you, shout out to me someone why you guys came today. What were you trying to get out of it? The what?
The hacks.
The hacks, okay. But why are you wanting to be able to hack? Like, what do you want? Like, what was your end goal for coming to something like this?
Game.
Game?
Game.
Game. Right? So I think a lot of people, when they think about getting things done, they think about efficiency. Right? Like, I want to get more stuff done. That's not the point. It's not. It's a byproduct, but it's not the point. The point is right here. When your brain is sitting there processing that crap and making this again, you know what you're not able to do? You're not able to dream about bigger things. You're not able to assemble systems and people. You're not able to think of new things. If all you're doing is churning the crap that you have to do in your head, you are not being fully actualized as a human being to operate at your full capacity that you were designed to operate at. And it's huge. And when you're able to get this crap down to, it's not about getting more done, it's getting to the point where you're not thinking about what you have to do. You can just do it. So when you're driving in the car, you're not sitting there going, oh man, what is it that I'm supposed to be picking up? You're thinking like, man, what if we shot something to the moon and this happened? But you're starting to think the crazy stuff. Right? Because your brain's bored. It says, hey man, we got time to play. Right? That's what you want. That's where creativity lives. Right? You want to go pick up a guitar. You want to do something that allows you to enjoy things. It allows you to observe things. You know how many people walk into a room and they'll be in a room. I mean, this kills me. I mean, I'm guilty of this at home because like home is kind of like thing. My wife could probably completely rearrange the furniture and it would take me 3 days to realize it unless it's like where I sit every day. So she moves like a plant from one. I mean, it could be the biggest plant in the room. Moves from A to B. Totally clueless. Changes her hair color. Probably totally clueless. Okay? But we do this all the time in life. You walk into a room. If you guys all left, I say, okay, everybody leave out here or there, and I want you guys to all draw me a diagram of what was in this room when you were sitting here. You guys would be horrified at how poor you probably observed this space. Why? Because your brain is full of all sorts of other crap that it's processing. You are not taking in 95% of your environment. Because your brain doesn't have the capacity. It's too busy processing where you're supposed to be next, what you're supposed to be doing next, what you've forgotten to do. Instead of being able to sit there and enjoy, and talk, look at the texture and the fans and the way these are done, and and we take that for granted. But that's where the good stuff in life comes from, is when we're able to really take that stuff in and process that instead of process what we need to do. Right? So releasing creative energy, sure, confidence is good, right? It's good to feel confident that, hey, I make a commitment to somebody, I can hold it. All that stuff is good. I think not being stressed, that certainly is good. Right? But I think, man, unlocking new capacity that you didn't know you had, that's where it's at. That's what you really want. You want to do more crap. Really, you do not want to do more crap. You want to do more meaningful crap. And the only way you're going to get there is to be able to unlock your creative side to know what's meaningful. Right? So you've got, the power of it is it's simple, it's flexible, and it's got immediacy. And we'll go through how this kind of works and, how it really allows you to kind of process things in absolute real time. Right? So some of the magic is it enlivens, it enlightens, it empowers. Right? So what starts to happen is when you really get to the point where you're able to get things done without thinking about it, it really is stress-free and it's off, you're going to find a new you awaken inside. Because you're going to be able to perceive things and do things and unlock parts of your brain that you didn't know you had. Right? And I know that sounds really corny. It sounds just like if you would have told me that if I put damn little sticky notes on my wall that me and my wife would stop fighting about who picks up who, when and where, I would have laughed at you. But it worked. Because I got a lizard brain, and if you found a way to hack it and trick it and do it. In the same way, we don't understand when we get out of that lizard kind of thinking. It unlocks a whole new capacity for our mind to work at. Okay? So, limiting criteria. So we can't do everything. Right? So there's a couple of pieces that are really important when we talk about, like, how do we put context around what we do, right? So one is, what is the context that I'm in? Okay, now there's also something called area of focus, and to me, context and area of focus are kind of these wishy-washy kind of things that are somewhat fluid, they're somewhat hard to define, but I think, the context is kind of, where am I at? Okay, so an example of this would be, are there certain things you can do at home that you can't do at work, or that you can do at work that you can't do at home? Yeah, maybe. Right? So the context might be different. I might not be able to take a very sensitive phone call at work because I don't have my own office where I can have a sensitive conversation. Right? The context is different, or it's not appropriate for me to do that at work. Right? I'm out laying block and I can't just go take a phone call, right? So my context is a little different. My time available. If I've got 10 minutes right now to do something, can I watch a 30-minute video? No? Right? It's time sensitive. If I need to go to DMV and I know it's going to take 3 hours, I can't squeeze that in a 2-hour window. So I have to know, hey, this thing's going to have a different time thing, so I'm going to have to be able to apply time. And another one is resources. For me, a great example of resources, and it hit me here with, I had Chris print me something, right? So, I've got in my system, I tag things as print, right? And so what it does is I'll tag things with print, and I'll tag things with phone. And the reason I do that is because I can only do those things if I have a phone and if I have a printer. So when I find a printer, you know what I'll do? I'll go look in my to-do list and say, what is everything that I have to print? And I'm going to print it all right now. I've got access to a printer because in my life, I only touch a printer every so often. So if I'm somewhere and I've got access to a printer, I'll try to print it all off. Otherwise, I end up doing what I did with Chris, which is, hey, can you print this for me because I don't have access to a printer. The only reason that happened is the printer where I was at earlier was not functioning today. So when it came up with my to-do list, I wasn't able to print it there because it wasn't functioning, had to come over here. But the point is, hey, now I've got a list of everything to print at once. Right? Or, hey, phone. Hey, I'm standing around waiting for my kids. Their soccer practice is going on. I can go in my list, I can say, what phone calls do I need to make? Boom, I can't get my normal work done. I can't sit down and start programming or do whatever. It's not the right thing. Right? So resources is another thing. What's available to me? Any questions about some of this? And we'll go in a little more deeper detail with some of this, but any upfront questions? Been talking for a long time, so. No? Good? Need to go faster? Need to go slower?
How long have you been using these methods, Derek?
When did you give me the book, Jade? 2005, 2004? I don't know, whatever the math on that is.
About 7 years or something.
I've always been a little bit of a punch list nerd, but like actually codifying it in the system for about 7 years or so.
Cool, thanks.
Any other questions? So nature of work, right? We've got unplanned work, we've got predefined work, and we've got defining work. Right? So unplanned work is those emergencies that happen. At work, this might be the boss comes in and says, I need you to do this right now, I don't care what else is going on, you need to do it right now. Not planned. Your significant other, your kids might think, hey, so-and-so's mom was supposed to pick us up, she didn't come pick us up, we need you to come pick us up now. Unplanned. There's predefined work. Hey, I know I'm going to change out the engine in that 72 Pontiac. I've defined what it is. I'm in a fair amount of control when I do that. And it's predefined. I know what's going on. I know it's there. I can define it. It's not unplanned. And there's defining work. This is the stuff the work that we do to build those visions and those purpose and the goals. It's the building block work that builds who we are. So it's the defining work. It's the stuff that is like the really important, meaningful stuff. It's not the stuff that has to be done. It's stuff that defines things, right? So we've got horizons of focus, right? We talked about this before, right? We have purpose, right? And so, we had the 6 that were there, right? So we have purpose. So when we review purpose, this is when I have to make major decisions to make. So, right, I said, you're not going to review these things all the time. So when should you review purpose? When I have a major decision to make. Just got offered a new job, but it's going to require me to move. Think I should maybe review my purpose? Probably. It's a pretty big decision. It affects me, affects my wife, affects our kids, affects my parents, affects my sister, affects my friends, affects a number of things. I probably should review. Is this purposeful to where I'm trying to go in life? Because if the answer is no, I probably shouldn't do it. If the answer is yes, it should be no-brainer. Right? So when do we review purpose? When we have major decision to make. Right? Vision. When do we review vision? Right? I need inspiration. The long-term direction. Right? When we're feeling kind of down and like, man, why am I doing this? Hey, go back to your vision. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm building this really great, magnificent thing. Wow, oh yeah, that's right. Oh man, the world's going to be so different when this happens. Well, I'm an idiot. I want to do this. Right? If you're in a band or something, right? And you're sitting there and you're fighting with, your bandmates and you're, out on the road, whatever. Like, it's pretty easy, like, hey, we had 5 people show up, man. We really want to do this? I'm like, hey, no, man, remember, we're going to be on a jet with, we're going to be rock stars. Oh, yeah, this is totally worth it. Maybe next time we'll have 6 people show up, right? Whatever. So things that goes back and says, like, you're in a marathon, not a sprint. Right? So we do this, we get stupid, we'll be like, I'm Superman today, and sprint, and like, why am I running? This sucks. And it's like, oh, wait, it's because I'm not running a 100-yard dash, I'm running the marathon. Let's make that pace accordingly. Let's go back, let that kind of redefine. So right, whenever you're kind of feeling like you need that boost, that's when you're going to go back and review that. When you review your goals. You're going to review your goals when you need to ensure that you're on track to get what I want. Right? You kind of feel like, hey man, maybe it doesn't feel like I'm getting to where I need to be. Hey, maybe I need to go back and look at what my goals are. Because I think sometimes goals we can do the same thing, where we don't decompose them enough. So my goal is like to be a millionaire. Well, I have to be a $500,000 before I can be a millionaire, and I have to be a $250,000 before I can be a millionaire. So maybe my goal should be a $250,000 before I'm a millionaire, right? Or something to that effect, right? So, hey, if I'm feeling like I don't have traction, maybe I need to go back and readjust those goals, or at least look at them to go like, hey, look, it goes back to that self-reflection. Right? Like, if I have goals, am I measuring against them? Can I say like, hey, I still have a long way to go, but I am making progress. Right? I am making progress. So, hey, I'm on track. I want to run a marathon, and, before I could barely walk around the block, but, I'm running 12 miles a day now. Like, it's not 27, but I'm getting there. I'm getting close, and it's getting better every week. I'm on track. Right? When would we review responsibilities? Right? When I need to ensure balance, right? This is You know, I like to say that there is no such thing as kind of work, life, whatever, and this whole concept of balance from you are who you are. But I think our body tells us, right, when we're out of alignment with who we are. So I think it's not about being balanced, meaning to me, balance is everything is equal. In life, everything is not equal, right? But we can get out of alignment, right? If I have a purpose or a goal of being a good father, okay, that doesn't mean that my time as a dad has to be equal to my time as a software engineer, has to be equal to my time as this, equal to the time as this. But if I'm not being a good father, I'm falling out of alignment with that, right? So whenever we start to feel like we're out of alignment or out of balance, we might want to go back and look at our responsibilities and recalibrate. Hey, maybe this is time where we need to throw some stuff off. Like, I'm too overcommitted to a bunch of crap. Maybe I need to not commit to some of that. Or maybe I'm spending a bunch of time on a stupid-ass video game because I'm bored and I don't have enough responsibilities. Entirely possible, man. Entirely possible. Right? So it's, hey, how do we take, when we're not sure and we know we're out of balance, we want to look at our responsibilities and get ourselves back in balance. Okay, projects. When we want to review them, we want to review them anytime I need to do my short-term commitments. And so as we're going out, we're trying to achieve things, we're trying to hit goals, we've got these kind of short-term projects. An example of a project would be that 72 potting kitchen. Right? It's a project. It has a beginning, has an end. It's a project. Okay? And it's relatively short. Because my wife's not going to let the car sit there for 20 years. So it's going to have a timeline. It's probably not going to be the 3 weeks that I lied to myself about, but it's probably not going to be 6 years either. Right? So it's going to be some kind of a project out there. Right? And then your calendar, your actions. Right? You want to review those. What do I need to do today? What do I have to get done today? So you can see these things kind of go in order, right? Like projects and, calendars and actions, probably every day. Projects, probably every week. Responsibilities, when you're out of balance. Goals, when you're not sure where you're going, you're kind of a little bit iffy. Vision, when you're not feeling inspired. Purpose, when you have to make big decisions. Right? So 2 of those are time-based, everything else is you-based. Right? When you know you need to go do it. Okay? Any questions on those? So one of David's things is, I trust my judgment because my inventory of actions is complete and current. My horizons of focus are in focus and integrated. My intuition is in play, vision sharp, decisions clear, and psyche relaxed. So what he's saying is, when you kind of have all of those things aligned and in balance, that's your sweet spot. And that's where you unlock the best you. When you have all of that rocking, you are your best you. Right? And you have to trust it. You have to trust that when you have those things, that you're going where you need to be. And you're able to unlock the best you. Okay, so this is probably going to be almost impossible to read, so I apologize for this. This is kind of a workflow map, and I'm going to go through it really quick, hopefully, because I know we're probably getting low on time. And so, remember we talked about what's rule number 1? Capture. Right? So you got all this crap, all this random input, right? Whether it be talking to people, mail, print, phone calls, sticky notes, email, new ideas, whatever. Like crap that's hitting you all the time, right? So you're going to say, what is it? What is it? Simple question. And then the next thing you're going to say, is it actionable? Can I do something with it? And if the answer is yes, we say, what's the next action? Right? We talked about this. What's the next action? And if it takes less than 2 minutes to do that action, do it. Get it done. Get it the hell out. Don't let your brain store it. Get it done. Mom emails, says, do you want to come to dinner this week? Can I answer that in 2 minutes? Do I want to go see Mom? Yes, I want to see Mom. Do I need to ask my wife if she wants to see Mom? No, I'll go see Mom even if she doesn't want to go see Mom. Mom, I'll see you at dinner on Monday. Done. The answer is no, it's not going to take more than 2 minutes because I need to talk to my wife. Goes in a bucket somewhere. And I move on. What's the next thing? Right? Process it all until this is empty. I don't know if you've seen the inbox zero stuff. This is kind of a David thing. He doesn't talk about inbox zero, but what he's talking about is don't let the shit pile up. Process it. If it's junk, if it's not actionable, it's just information, it's just whatever, toss it, get it the hell out. See this right here? Use it. If it's actionable and it takes less than 2 minutes, do it. If it's not actionable and it takes more than 2 minutes, throw it in another bucket and grab the next thing from the top of the stack until everything's captured. Then once things are captured, what you can start to do is say, hey, is there more than one step to this? And if the answer is yes, it becomes a project. Anytime it's more than one action, it becomes a project. If you're breaking stuff down small, almost everything that comes in this, I find most things that are more than 2 minutes become projects. Because the reason they're more than 2 minutes is because you don't know what to really do, or there's multiple things you need to do. Right? And so in there you've got kind of all these things. And they might be calendar appointments, they might be, any number of things, right? And what does this become? This becomes your predefined work. Right? And so what happens is this stuff comes in. Some of it's going to be, boom, it's not going to go into this bucket. It's going to be, hey, this has to happen right now. Like, the building is on fire. I need to go call the fire department. I don't go, I'll throw that in my next action bucket, and tomorrow I'll think about that in my review. No, you're going to say, I'm going to go call the fire department. Everything in this queue is going to wait. It's not going to happen as much as you think once you get organized. But then what happens is now kind of in your daily review, you can go through and say which of these things are the most important, kind of get them up at the top of the queue, say this is what I plan on doing today. They kind of become your predefined work to do. Right? And again, it can be counters. I like to do, and then you've got other things like, is it actionable? No. Well, is it a reference item? Like it's informational, right? Hey, it's a printed piece of paper, you put it in a filing cabinet. It's a digital thing, figure out a filing system digitally to put shit that you want to reference later. Right? Like a great example for me on this is I love to read. I love to capture a lot of stuff. I get a whole lot of stuff coming in where it's like, oh man, I want to read that. I don't put it over here anymore. I put it in a reference called Goodreads. And I have a list out there that says, crap, I want to read. Right? And so then when I get to the point where it's like, okay, I want to read this, you know what happens? I say, I want to get this from the library or buy it at Barnes & Noble or Amazon or whatever, and that becomes an action. But I don't have 6,000 actions in my action box for reading because it would overwhelm me. I do have 6,000 things in my I want to read this crap list. Okay, but I don't pull them, I pull them out on demand to get them into here, right? So you have to learn how to say, if it's not really something I have to do, it's not really actionable, there's nothing wrong. We do this with ideas. Hey, it's a really great idea, but I don't have time to do this. It's not in alignment with where I'm going. It's not but I don't want to let go of it. And I'll think about it all the time if I let go of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this little folder over here, and every time my brain says, what about that idea? I go, oh, don't worry, I got it in that little secret spot. And when I want it, I can go get it. Makes me have to not think about it. And you have stuff that's just trash, right? Like you're never going to do anything with it. Get it the hell out of the system, right? So these things can kind of loop back in. So from that, you come down, and now I've got an action that's doable, right? And it's in my list, it's predefined. Now I have to apply all of these things to it. What's the context? What can I do, right? Is it possible to do in my current environment? I'm at work. Is this something I can get done at work? No, I'm only allowed to do work stuff at work. You know what? I want to filter out everything that's not work stuff because I'll get in trouble if I do personal stuff at work. So my personal stuff's no longer in that context. So this allows you your first, think of it as a Rubik's Cube. You're doing that first big shift and say, I'm filtering it so I'm only seeing the blue tiles. Okay, cool. Now we're just got blue. So we went from however many sides on a Rubik's Cube, 50, 64 or something tiles to now I'm looking at 9 tiles. And that's all that's there, right? Okay, and then I can say, okay, of these tiles, do I have enough time to do any of them? Oh yeah, I have time to do that one, and that one. Okay, so there's 3 possibles. Now I narrow it down by, I've only got an hour left before it's time to go home, right? Or I only have an hour before it's time to leave. Are there any of these things that I can do in that time frame? Okay, so I've narrowed it down again. And then resources. Do I have the energy to do it? Do I have the assets to do it? Do I have the printer? Why would I pick up a printer task if I don't have a printer? Why would I pick up calling somebody if I'm in the middle of a Chuck E. Cheese and I can't hear a damn thing around me? Probably not the best time to pick up a call me task. Right? So we have to understand these things, right? So these are filters that you can do. Now, one of the other things, and I don't know if he necessarily gets into it, he's here to surprise you folks. So once we've got this and we've narrowed it down, now we've taken this big list of stuff and by kind of twisting these bits, we've now made it something that's manageable to pick from, right? And so then we can say, okay, as part of that, we now have kind of, then we kind of do the work, right? So then you've got the unplanned work, the predefined work, right, and the defining work, right? We kind of have a review. We talked about the calendar and the action list and the projects and each one of these kind of things and when it's appropriate to review them, right? So normally on a daily basis, what you go through is you go through your kind of stuff that you need to do, pick it out based on the context, number of things. You kind of slide those in and say, this one needs to get done today. I'm going to take it. And then if I get everything done, I'll pull more stuff in, right? Then once a week, you're going to want to go through those projects and say, what are the stuff that, that I need to pull in for this week, right? Like what's the kind of stuff that's kind of on a near-term horizon that I need to kind of filter that in. And then you've got something here that, is the horizon of focus, they call it area of focus. And this is like, to me, it's like the hats that you wear in life, right? So I'm trying to think, some of my areas of focus would be like, I've got a home focus, right? Like I want to make sure that my stuff, in my family commitments are taken care of. So I've got a home focus. And I serve on a nonprofit board for the DCCP. So that's another hat that I wear. So I've got a DCCP focus. And I work at Integrams. So I've got an Integram focus. And I work at Gangplank. And so I've got a Gangplank focus. And I do a lot of work. I teach at ASU, so I've got an ASU focus. And so each of these kind of things, I kind of want to put like buckets in that I can kind of categorize. So in my brain, right? And we talked about when we go to do these reviews of areas, responsibilities, and goals, and I feel like, man, I'm failing as a teacher at ASU. Now I can filter it and say, like, what's the ASU stuff? Like, I'm feeling like I'm deficient in that area. What's the crap that I need to do there? That if I went and kind of made a concerted effort to, like, boost that I could get back on track for that goal, right? Or, hey, what if it's like, I don't have time to teach. I'm not going to teach next semester. So, like, I can now functionally tear all of the stuff for that and go throw it in the trash or throw it in, the ice box or the reference thing because I don't need to worry about it. Right? So it's an easy way to group things by almost like functional area if you were running a business, but it really is like the hats that I wear, the things I'm responsible for. And you can make those as broad or as narrow as you want. I like to kind of think of it as different roles. Like if I kind of report, if who owns it for me or who I'm responsible to is different in it, then I try to like put it in a separate bucket so that I can kind of help align. That helps me align myself to the things, right? Right, and so then you've got kind of, if you look at this as like the 50,000 foot view, 40,000, right? So your purpose is the big, like, my life, right? Your vision is the kind of like, where am I going in this period kind of in my life, right? The goals are, what do I need to get there? The responsibilities are, hey, hey, I wear this hat, and 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 I need to be aware of that. And then the projects are, hey, what do I need to do in these areas? And you've got the calendars and actions, right? And what happens is, you're able to start getting this stuff done, and it gives you way more energy, clarity, expansion, everything we talked about, right? And then it loops so that you can take more capacity, you can do more, and you're able to be more actualized in the work you do. Any questions on this flow for right now?
So I actually have a question. I know this is something I struggle with, and maybe I'll get into it a little bit more. But when I let undefined work overpower or overtake the predefined work.
Why do you do it?
What's that?
Why do you do it?
I do not know. I think it's a problem with commitments.
Yeah, so usually the reason people do it is it's an easy form of procrastination. So if I've got stuff that I've got committed to, or I've got stuff over here, what happens is I either lack clarity in doing those things, or I'm afraid of success, afraid of failure, or I'm not in control of it, so it's my way of controlling it, right? Whatever those things are, right? And so something new comes in, and it's like a distraction. Ooh, look, a pony, right? Like, ooh, I can go take care of this, and then now I have a valid excuse to not do this thing that it's a valid form of procrastination. So if I procrastinate and I don't do anything, then I'm lazy. If I go fight a fire, then I'm a hero, man. Like, come on. I mean, you want me to not take care of this? It's so important. Or we build this cyclical problem, right? Which is we're not taking care of the important things early, so everything becomes an emergency. So I've got 10 days to do something. I don't do anything day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7, day 10, day 11, day 12, and day 13 somebody says, hey man, you've owed me this thing for 3 days, I need it right now, or like all hell's going to break loose. Well, now I have no choice, I have to do it. right? So usually those are one of the two primary reasons we do that. So I think one of the things you do is if you start to get in alignment here, get this stuff done, if the second thing is what's causing your problem, that should go away. Because you should be able to fight procrastination, get it, hey, if I got 10 days to do this, I'm getting it done day 5 instead of day 13 where somebody's coming and knocking on my door. If you're doing it the other way where it's like the fear of success, failure, one of those things that start to happen and get into us, one of the things that you can start to do is get into alignment and say, do I really have to do this right? Like, is the world going to end if I don't do this right now? And if the answer is no, I can put it in my trusted system and know it's going to get done. So part of the other reasons when somebody comes and says this thing's really important and we jump on it is we're so deathly afraid that if we don't do it right now, we'll forget and bad things will happen. But if we know, like, hey, we put in this thing, I finished the other stuff I already planned on doing today, and then I can get to this, and I know that that's going to happen, and I have confidence in myself that that's going to happen, then I don't feel that immediacy and that pressure that, like, I have to take care of this, right? So hopefully one of those two things will happen is if it's because you're building that debt up, hopefully something like this prevents that debt from building up. If it's one of those things that you're having trouble prioritizing because of fear, it allows you to be a little bit more confident that you're able to get things done to where you don't have to, that you have the confidence to say, you know, this can wait until I do these other 5 things need to happen first and then I'll get to that one. Because I know I'm going to do these other 5 things and I'm going to get them done. And that's going to give me the ability to do it. Other questions? So the result, energy, clarity, expansion, exploration, expression, right? So this is me before GTD, right? A little bit of insanity happening, right? And here's me after GTD, a little bit more happy, a little less, face paint, I guess, right? So how do I start? First thing you do is process your desk. Now, when David wrote this stuff, it was old, kind of like me, and we didn't have, like, everything in computers per se. Now your desk is probably something virtual more than physical. But some of you probably, if you have responsibilities and bills and other things, you probably have mail that comes in, you probably have a desk somewhere that you do have some paper on, right? So process your desk, whether it's physical, whether it's virtual, process it, capture it, get it all. Don't leave anything, like cockroaches, eliminate it all. Because remember, you don't have to do anything to start with other than process and capture it. So pick it up. Can I do it in 2 minutes? Yes or is it actionable? Yes or no? If the answer is no, you file it away or you throw it in the trash. If the answer is yes, you say, can I do it in the next 2 minutes? If the answer is no, you put it in, okay, I need to do this. And you just go through. Don't sit there and sift and prioritize and memorize. And don't get all whacked. Just boom, boom, boom. It's going to take you a while. It might take you an hour. It might take you 3 days. Depends on how much crap you got out there, how much stuff you got to process, how much you got. But you got to get it all. But if you don't, your brain's going to roll. And it's going to know. Your brain is smart enough to know that little thing that you didn't process is going to know and it's going to obsess on it.
Do you ever work with somebody else who helps you sort through your stuff? Sort of like, pull it up and makes you decide?
I wish. I'm too much of a control freak for that. I think some of it is when you get somewhat good at this, that doesn't become as much of a problem anymore. I'll say about the only place that it's starting to happen a little bit more for me is with my calendar. So like Katie and Trish, sometimes Jade, sometimes my wife, it's one of those hey, I need your time, and it's like, my calendar's out there, whatever's open is available, you stick it on there, because I don't, and some of that is I just don't want the overhead. I don't want to play the here's my 5 available dates, it's like my calendar is my gospel, so if it's not on my calendar, I'm not going to it because I don't know about it, because I'm so busy, I'm so dumb that if it's not on my calendar, I'm not showing up to it, because it goes back to when you have a trusted system. I trust that my calendar is right. And I don't know, I was in a meeting it was Trish today, and we drove all the way to Avondale, and we got out there, and I said, the first thing I said is, I hope this meeting is really today. She kind of looked at me like, we just drove 45 miles, and it's like, the reality is, I looked at it, and hey, I got a meeting today, you get a car, and you go do it. When I got there, I had time, I looked, and I said, ooh, shit, this says tentative. And I don't remember if it's tentative or not. Well, I'm already here, but it's because I have that level of trust in my calendar that somebody put that on my calendar. It's like, I gotta go, I'm gonna be late, right? So I can give people that authority now to say, look, if you want my time, there's my calendar. If there's an open spot, it's really open. Because what's on my calendar is what's on my calendar, or I don't know about it anyway, so I'm not going to be mad at you if you schedule over it, because I would have been like, oh crap, I'm supposed to be somewhere, which just happened too. Right?
So you're using, what, Google Calendar?
I'll get into kind of the tools I'm using and some of that, and certainly don't make this about tools. You can use whatever you want to make it work. Show you some of the hacks that work for me. So process your inbox, right? So, you got to do your desk, you got to do your inbox. This is your email. You get all the crap out of your email. You should have nothing in your email box. It should be empty. And I don't mean go create a little archive folder that you go back to as a blinky.
It's
gone. If we do the mentor program for this, I'll be your accountability buddy, and I'll make you show me your email once a week to keep you honest. Capture everything you need to do. If you owe somebody something, get it down. Set up a filing or a reference system. Figure it out. Right? So I got Goodreads for books. Got Dropbox for files. Yeah, whatever. Whatever it is. I've got filing cabinets at home. Whatever your thing is, where do you put your crap? Figure it out. You need to set up a calendar. Could be a digital calendar. Could be an old on-the-wall calendar. As you saw at my house, it could be blue frog tape and sticky note. There's 1 week at a time. You need to have a calendar. You need to do your weekly review. Start with this. This is how you get started. Capture it all, get it all in, do your first weekly review, say, what do I need to get done next week? Let's get that stuff to the top. How long will it take? Hour, 3 days, some amount of time. Probably a couple hours, half day probably for most people. Okay. Filing system, maybe an hour, depends on how well you've kept that up. Right? Figure half day to full day. Right? So I'm lazy, is there a shortcut? Right? Don't start with capture. Clear out your inbox. Set up the filing system, right? Goes pretty quick. So that's about the biggest shortcut. You have to do these things, right? You might not have to do everything. I really suggest that you do, because these 3 are the toughest. I imagine for most of you, if you are email hoarders, the inbox is going to be tough for you. It's going to be really, really tough for you. Because you know what happens when you move it? Your brain's saying, man, if that's not my inbox, I'm going to forget doing something. You know what? If you're already thinking that, you're already forgetting to do it. People are already mad at you. So, you got nothing to lose. Like I see, you got nothing to lose. Okay? So I'm overwhelmed. I can't do it. It's too much. I got 70,000 pieces of mail in my inbox. I can't do this. Stop whining. Get on the horse. Just start. Start. What's the next action? The next action goes to my procrastination thing. I'm going to spend 15 minutes. And one of the byproducts of self-actualization, my number one problem with procrastination is I don't like to start. I find if I start, I kick ass. In fact, it takes an act of God usually to stop me if I'm not done, because I'm a perfectionist, but it takes me forever to start. And the number one thing that I hate starting is writing. It's so hard for me to start writing. Once I start writing, I can write for a long time. Other things, cleaning. I hate cleaning. I love clean stuff. So if I get started, I don't want to stop. Because, man, look how clean it is. Right? And so, like, an example, this weekend, I got a closet. The closet is bigger than my first house. And it's not been cleaned for like 7 years. And my wife's been asking me for a long time. She says, it's too overwhelming. I know I can't do it. I need your help to do it. Put off for like 3 weeks. Finally, say, you know what? This thing has been on my inbox. I clean out my to-do list every weekend, right? And it's one of the one thing, it and writing are the only 2 damn things that I don't finish on the weekends that I plan on doing. And I finally say, you know what? I'm going to do what I've been doing at work. I'm going to set a 15-minute timer. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to clean for 15 minutes. And however much I get done. When the timer goes off, if I'm pissed off and don't want to do this, I'm going to quit. I'm going to do 15 freaking minutes of it. I end up being there 2.5 hours, and the closet is like awesome. Okay? But it's because I just need to just start. Right? And I think, same thing. So if you have to say, like, this is so overwhelming for me, I can't do it. Start a timer. I'm going to spend 15 minutes processing my inbox. At the end of 15 minutes, if I'm totally frustrated, I'm going to give yourself permission to get up and go do what you like. If you like to crochet, if you like to watch TV, if you like to walk, if you like whatever, say, I'm going to do this for at least 15 minutes, and then in 15 minutes, I'm going to go back to yourself to say, do whatever I want. But also give yourself permission to say, hey, if it's working and I'm in a flow state, then I'll stay in that flow state until I don't feel like I'm in a flow state. Do it in 15-minute blocks. Give yourself freedom to say, hey, I'm done, I give up. Okay? But start. Because if you don't start, you're never going to get anything done. No sorting. Well, I'll go to get the important emails and get them moved first. Or I'll clear out all the spam stuff and then I'll get to the... No, start the first thing, just do it. Don't sort it. Because you're just wasting time. Sorting doesn't help. You're not doing your weekly review right now. You're doing capture. They're two separate things. Get it all captured. Once it's done being captured, the shit that was spam got deleted. The stuff that didn't went into your box or it got done. When you go to do your weekly review, then you can sort it. But not until you capture it. Process from top to bottom. Right? Like, man, I'm so bad at this when I clean, like, it's like, ooh, here's a box of pictures. Let's look at every picture. Look, another picture! They all go in the picture box. Why do I need to look at every picture? Right? Well, because there might be a really cool one in there. They want to take a picture and put it on Facebook and their memory. No, if I want to get this closet clean, I can't look at every picture. Okay? Same thing. Process top to bottom. Okay? Is GTD a cult? No. Yes. Maybe. Right? I think anytime you start to talk about things that release a fair amount of self-actualization in people, there's a certain amount of enlightenment that happens, and I think when that happens, that becomes kind of, I don't want to say viral, but people will get passionate about it, right? And people see that, right? When people see like, holy crap, this person gets a lot done, and they're like really effective in this, and then somebody's dumb enough to ask them why, and they go, oh my god, you guys are just like, oh my god, this is a creeper, man, right? Just get okay with it. Being a creeper is not all bad thing, I promise. Right. So some resources, and I'll send this stuff out and post this up. But Personal Kanban by Jim Benson, The Now Habit by Neil Forey, Getting Things Done by David Allen, Ready for Anything by David Allen, and Making It All Work by David Allen. If you read only one of these, read Making It All Work by David Allen. It's kind of it's like his second or third revision of Getting Things Done, so it's a lot more. The original Getting Things Done was really only about kind of the task list kind of things and the like bottom half of that pyramid. The Making It Work kind of, he realized that you have to have alignment to what your purpose is and your vision is to be effective at some of the other stuff. So he kind of added that stuff as he kind of learned and undone. The Now Habit is a great book on the psychology of procrastination. Highly recommended if you're like nerdy human brain science kind of stuff. If not, like read some blog posts by Neil, and he's got some great stuff in tidbits. Right?
Peter,
Yeah.
how would it be on like audiobook versus regular book?
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into my hacks. I'm to the point where I think I almost prefer audiobooks more than non-audiobooks because they're a great use of my time.
I just think, some books are not great audiobooks because there's so many like lists and exercises.
Getting Things Done is the only audiobook I've ever listened to all the way through.
Okay, so they're fine.
Yeah, I mean, most books that have too many images, like, I don't read anymore, so. So tools, like a capture device, like how do you get your stuff, how do you bring it in? For me, I really like Things by Cultured Code. It's a Mac-only product, but any number, I've seen people use Outlook, I've seen people use, half a dozen different web apps, iPhone apps, Android apps. Those don't matter. You just need something to be able to capture things into. Right? So whatever that capture device is, it doesn't have to be digital, but I assume most of you have digital stuff. I assume most of you have email, you have things. Now, I do know some people, even older than me, as hard as that is for me to believe, that do print out email, move it into their list on paper. I'm not going to bitch. If they get stuff done, good for them. I don't have access to a printer enough, so it doesn't work for me. Not because I love trees, as you notice I put sticky notes all over everywhere, so I'm totally okay with killing trees. But if I would say if the majority of your stuff that comes in digital, use the digital capture device. It just makes sense. If the majority of your stuff is not digital, then no. Or like at home, non-digital capture device. We're using sticky notes on a wall. My personal stuff, some of that's volume. The stuff at home is not nearly as high in volume as the stuff in all the other things I'm juggling. Right? You need some sort of calendar or tickler file, right? You need something that reminds you when things are in the future, right? I do everything via iCal as my weapon of choice that actually syncs to GCal. I prefer iCal from an interface perspective. I think anything that has a calendar and probably has the ability to have reminders is valid. There's so many awesome hacks for calendaring. It's not even funny. One of the things, if you have a hard time getting in the flow, a hard time starting, one of the things like that Neil would recommend is that you actually schedule you schedule your time first, right? So what you would do is you would say like, I want to spend 2 hours a day doing something, or in flow state. Go schedule those 2 hours before you schedule anything else, and those become blocks that nobody's allowed to touch. They become your sacred, and that forces you, hey, I've scheduled this time. In fact, I've scheduled other crap around this time. Now I've got this kind of like, this is my time to get in the zone, right? So there's hacks like that. There's all sorts of hacks for like, various reminders of like, hey, maybe it's not a meeting I have to go to. Maybe it's I have to take my pills, or I have to do, any number of things that you need to be prompted by time. Use timekeeping devices to do it. I mean, that's what they're made for. They're really good at it. A filing system, whether it be digital filing systems or whether it be Dropbox, iCloud, whatever, that, as well as physical, right? For me, most of the only stuff I really have that's physical are like personal records, like birth certificates, that kind of stuff, or like I still do a lot of my bills non-online. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot of paper. My paper is pretty minimal. High or low tech, either works. Moleskins are evil. I'm not going to go on a big rant on it. I think I got a blog post or something on it. The problem is anything that is a capture device that you don't actually put in your system is just a waste. Because you know it's in your Moleskine, but you don't know how to get it out. So if you're using, like the most effective way I've seen people that use Moleskines that want to use them as processing devices is, hey, I'm in a thing, and I'll Moleskine it out, and then I'll just tear the page out and put that into my filing system, right, or my system of record. Or when I'm done, I'll basically, and I was doing this for a long time with the Moleskine, and in fact, I went away from Moleskine, and I went to just part of them cheap. I went to what Edith's got right there with the nice yellow pad paper. So I'm in a meeting like this, I just write it down. As soon as I get back home, I tear the sheet off, I'll put it in my inbox. The next time I go to do my review, I'll pull it out and I'll key all the crap in it that is stuff that I need to do, like next step kind of stuff. I'll put that in my system, I'll rip up the paper, and I'll throw it in the trash. If it's stuff where it's like, hey, that was really great information, but there's nothing actionable on it, it was just really good, but I don't want to throw it away, I'm going to go file it away in my reference system. I'm going to take a picture of it with my iPhone, which is my personal Xerox machine, and I'm going to upload it to iCloud or to wherever, and now my brain says, hey, if you ever want it, you got it. Now, do I ever go and get it? No, but you know what, it's out of my brain thinks that I can go get it, so that's all that matters. Remember, these are hacks. Your brain just has to believe you. That's it. Right? So next actions, what are they? I talked about this, right? How granular should be, have too many of them, seem to never disappear. Right? So I think this is highly personal. Like and when I said like, hey, the first next action is really find the phone number. Some people, if you're good at doing stuff and being pretty disciplined, you probably don't necessarily need to say, hey, you could say like, hey, I need to go get the engine, right? Or I need to find out where the engine is, and in that should encompass finding who they are, finding their phone number. You might not need to go that granular. Whatever's comfortable for you, it goes back to if you're not getting stuff done, you're not granular enough. Right? So that's a good litmus test. If you're not getting stuff done, you're not granular enough. If you're getting stuff done, but it feels like you just have bazillions of them, you might be breaking it down too small. Play with it until you figure out what's right for you, because it's going to be different for everybody. And then repeatable actions. So one of the things I really love about getting things done is you can do repeatable actions. So like I do my bills once a week. I don't even go to the mailbox. I go to the mailbox one time a week. That's it. Because it tells me to on Sunday afternoons. I get a reminder that pops up, it's time to go do the bills. Oh shit, I'm going to go do the bills. Okay. That's my cue. I don't think about it. It used to be I had to go to the mailbox every day because man, there might be a new bill in there. I don't need to go to the mailbox every day. Those bills aren't due the day that I open up the mailbox. They're due 2 weeks from when I open up the mailbox. So I open up the mailbox once a week. Hell, one time I was doing it once a month until I learned, and this is true, if you do not get your mail like every 2 weeks, they'll send all your shit back.
Yeah.
Happened. It pissed me off. Some fear. It's like, hey, where's my mail? And then mail was, whoa, don't you get your mail? I'm like, yeah, once a month. They're like, oh, it's 2 weeks. If you don't pick up your mail for 2 weeks and your mailbox is full, the mailman will send it back. Okay, I guess I do it every week. I learned the hard way. Context, what are they? So we talked about that. Any questions kind of about context, right? That's, your environment that you're kind of in. Some of these contexts I've pretty much gotten rid of them for the most part. I use areas of focus a little bit more context. Now some of that is the way that I work. Like I can seamlessly go between personal life, job, Gangplank, this, like that's pretty fluid. Like I can be in this building and do 6 different things and I'm not going to get in trouble. If I was in corporate cube land where like that was really frowned upon, that I went and looked at my bank online, the process of payment, I probably would switch back to having some kind of form of context to be a little bit more separated. For me, those are kind of blurred. But one of the things I will do is I'll tag things, for example, that, like I said, for like printing or phone, or sometimes like one of the things that I'm real bad about now, Siri and reminders is a whole other game changer for me. But one of the things I used to do is like, hey, I'm going to be at Home Depot, and it's like I'll be doing something like, oh crap, I need a flashlight. And I put it on the list. Well, I never get it because I always forget when I'm at Home Depot. So I started to get to the point where it's like certain places, the drugstore, Home Depot, the grocery store, I'll just create tags for that. So it's like, oh yeah, I need batteries. Tag that at the grocery store. And so then when I go to the grocery store, I'm in the habit of, what's in the grocery store tag? Oh crap, that's right, I need batteries. Right? And I'm in the habit of it now because it's like, then it happens and I don't run out of whatever, right? I don't do the grocery list separate, but like if you did that, you could do grocery list and tag it, whatever. Right? Weekly review, what is it? We kind of talk about that. This is where you go through, and I'll try to show, and I hope we don't run out of time, but I went quite a bit long here. So best practices, ubiquitous capture, right? To me, this is you should always be capturing. So the thing that I love about things is you can highlight anything inside of the operating system, hit a 2-button thing, and it'll pop it up, it'll shove it right into your things list with a link back to whatever that object was in the operating system, which is great. Like this, I could never have gotten into my email inbox without something like this. I can go to every email and say, can I respond to this right now? If the answer is no, I highlight it, hit 2 buttons, put a thing on it, and it goes off my thing. And now when I go back to that list and I open it up, I click the thing, and it'll take me right back to that email. Right? So and now only it's context-based. I'm able to do, if I need to put a schedule, hey, I need to answer this by tomorrow, I can put a date and a time so that it'll tell me, hey, you need to answer this tomorrow, right? I don't have to have that pressure, right? So ubiquitous capture is huge. Weekly review, absolutely, positively, the only way you're not going to fall off the wagon. Because if you're not reviewing this stuff on a regular basis, you're either going to let it get built up and overwhelmed, or you're going to forget to do stuff because you didn't prioritize it, in which case you're not going to trust your system, so you're going to stop using it. Right? One of the two. Daily glance, this is, hey, I need to look at what do I need to get done today, take a look at it and make sure I'm doing the most important things first so that I trust my system. Right? Inbox, outbox system, this one is not as much. This used to be a little bit more. If you're in an office environment, or home environment where you still pass a lot of things around, not via email, like physical things, you need some form of an inbox or an outbox. I do this with my kids still, where when they need me to sign stuff, here we kind of have it like with DCCP, it's more like they know that they're like a human inbox, so when I walk in the door, they like come like, hey, we need you to sign all this stuff, we need you to review this. Right, so it's like I don't have a physical box that I go to, but they know, like, hey, we know you're not here all the time, so when you're here, I'm going to treat it like an inbox and dump it on you. And then email processing is huge. Right? Extra tools, you got like Instapaper is a great tool for being able to like read it later. Instapaper, you're reading the web, you're like, oh, this is a really good article, but I don't have time to read it right now. Snap it up, throw it in a queue somewhere, right, and come back and read it later. Right? That way your brain says like, hey, that's important, I know I want to read it, but now I can prioritize it. I don't have to read it right now. Normally we'd say, I have to read it right now, otherwise I'm going to forget that it's here, I'm never going to come back to it, and I'm going to miss this really great content, and then I now have forgotten to do a bunch of stuff because I've spent all my time reading these articles on the internet. Goodreads, same thing for books. iPhone voice, I think voice recording Siri, stuff is awesome. When you get to the point where your brain's not thinking about this kind of crap all the time, what it does is it allows you to actually think and have ideas and to ideate. And then what starts to happen is then you get stressed like, I had this really great idea in the car this morning. Or my problem is I have in the shower. I had this really great idea in the shower. Because when I'm in the shower, I'm not thinking like, what do I need to do today? I don't need to do that, man. I did that last night when I did my daily review. I know what I'm doing today. My brain's on autopilot from that goes. But I start to, think about other things. So when I get out, I get to open my iPhone and I can just dictate da-da-da-da-da. I mean, I've even got some blog posts that are just, basically, I'll just turn on the thing and just talk to myself in the car. I started to do audiobooks because I got weird looks when I just talked to myself in the car with the windows down. So now somebody else talks to me in the car with the windows down and I get a different kind of weird look. But it's okay. Spiral Notebook goes back to Spiral Notebook, or the legal pads work great. And then voicemail transcription. If you're not having your voicemail transcribed, it's great. Throws it digital, makes it easy to capture. Don't even bother ever, if you're checking your voicemail, you're wasting your time. That should just be all automated, piped right into your system somehow. So demo, interactive capture, okay. So any questions on that? I'll give you like just a real quick 2-minute demo. I know that some of you probably have to go. It's getting late. We're probably out of time. So I will not be offended if you walk out on me. I wouldn't have been in the beginning either. But I'm giving you permission now. And I'll just show you a little bit of what my system looks like so that, yeah.
You mentioned all about things, software? Or what do you-
Yeah, so I'll show you right now what's going on here. So,
Blocking the screen.
what's in? Am I blocking? My fat head. All right. So this is things. Hopefully there's nothing too embarrassing that I need to do. Okay, so inside of things here, here's like the inbox, right? Where this is where stuff for me comes in, right? It means it's not processed, nothing there. Obviously, it's kind of the middle of the day. I've been pretty busy today. I've not collected a whole bunch of stuff. Actually, I did collect a couple of things, but before I left to come here, I actually moved them out of my inbox into either today or next actions. Inside today, this is the stuff that really needs to be done today. To the right are the things that, the number of items in that list. Things to the left in red are the number of things that are overdue or due today. So obviously those things are probably a little higher priority to me. Right? Next actions are things that need to happen next. Right? So when we talk about create your next actions, but they're not next actions that need to happen today, per se. They're just all the next actions that need to happen. Okay? These scheduled are, hey, these are things that happen on a certain time, whether that be recurring, whatever. You know. Now the great thing about things, and I'll show you, is you can put something in, schedule it, and say, X number of days before it's due, I want you to put it in my inbox, or my today box. Right? So that it automatically says like, hey, this is going to be due in 3 days. You might want to think about doing it. Right? Your Sunday are, remember, the things that aren't really processable. They're the idea, oh, this is a really great idea. What's the next action? I don't know. It's not really like high priority for me. Boom, throw it in a Sunday. Right? Doesn't mean you're never ever going to do it, but it means you're not going to waste your time processing it, worrying about it, reviewing it, whatever else. So maybe when you go and you say, hey, what are my goals? I might go back and look at what are some of my Sunday things, right? Maybe some of those need to be moved up in priority, or maybe some of them I can get rid of, right? And then your projects are basically just a way of filtering or categorizing your next action and your scheduled and your items for a particular thing, right? So, well, I'll just go through. So in today, right, I've got this filter. So these are all sorts of blogs. So I've really been trying to write more. So I threw a bunch of stuff in here. I need to clean some of it out. It was, on the weekend, I tried to make this, like, really punch through this, just because I'm having a hard time doing it. And then, I've got, these are my, it'll be projects. This is kind of a weird view to look at like this, but it categorizes by filter. So all of these things are things that need to be done, but they also are categorized by context, or area of focus, right? So I've got Enneagram's an area of focus, Gangplank's an area, Home's an area of focus. Oops, I just hit the wrong thing. Or project, right? And so this is a context. So blog is a context for me. And so if I look, I've got something, here, and then if I click on this, it actually is going to go to that email. So that's a really great thing, right? Is I've got this ability to, when I have an email, I can highlight it and say, hey, I need to do this thing. I go to do it. I can click it. It's going to open up, go right to that email. So if I need to respond to them, whatever, I can do that right away. Right? You can see there's the link in the operating system to how it gets that. So that can be anything. It can be a document. It can be a website. It can be anything that's attached to it. So that's one of the things I really love this, because I'm in a digital world most of the time. So it allows me to basically get things back without having to go look up, where did I find that? I got to go search. What I used to do, and this was painful, but I used to do it, is I just have the same thing. Judge ASU Innovation Challenge. You know what I do? Go back to my email, type in the search thing, ASU Innovation Challenge, and hope to God Gmail gets me a small enough result set that I'm not spending an hour trying to find the email. Now I can go straight to that email.
So show how that works. Right?
Do you want me to show? So if I click this.
Like how you would capture an email.
Yep. And it's just
You're not
gonna,
connected to the internet.
pop right in here, hopefully. Am I on the
Your
internet?
Wi-Fi was off.
What's it?
Your Wi-Fi was off.
I can't see it is my problem. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to demo this or not.
Derek, does things work for MacMail too, with MacMail?
Yes, anything in the operating system it'll work on. So anything I'm on, if I highlight it, it will make a reference to that object in the operating system and take me back to that. huh? There's no network. I don't want to spend too much time. Oh, there you go. I wish I knew how to turn notifications on.
Option, click
but I
it.
don't.
Hold down option and click on the notification.
When it's on, then you can turn them on.
Right there, the little three
Oh, okay.
at the top.
So then it'll go in, it'll pop, and show there, and then it should go, if it's not slow as heck here. It normally does not take this long. And then boom, I write that email, right? So if I were to go process my, this is like really dangerous, I guess, to do live, but that's okay, right? So, so if I were going into this, it's like, okay, what is this? Okay, whatever, okay, I like that. Can I do this in less than 2 minutes? I hit approve or I hit spam it and it's done. So I click on this link or this link is the next action. Can I do that in 2 minutes? Yeah, so I'm going to click it and do it and be done with it. Like, okay, I'm going to approve it. I don't know what this really is. But, I'm going to approve it, right? It's going to pop it out. It's going to ask for a password, whatever. I'm going to enter that password and boom, I'm going to be done with it, right? And I don't know. It's weird to like work while people are watching you, but and maybe this is
It
not.
might take more than 2 minutes.
I might. If this doesn't work, then.
What is things then? Is
So-
that a black thing or?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what, this would be a great example of, okay, well, crap, I really can't do this because I can't remember the password. So I can highlight all this. I can do 2 keystroke, and now it pops it up. It's got this, and I can say asterisk to, or I don't even need asterisk. I can do this myself, right? See, this is like I'm not gonna blame Truth for this. I can do this myself. Reset Gangplank health password and approve item. Boom, done, right? So now if I go back into here, it's in my inbox, right? So if I were to go and process it, I could do a couple of things, right? Is it today or is it the next thing? It's like, oh, I need to get that done today. Like I don't really need to get done today, but for right now, I need to get done today. If I go in today, it's not categorized. Well, what's that for? That's for Gangplank, so I'm going to throw it into the Gangplank context, right? And so now if I were to go look at today and go down to Gangplank, there it is. If I wanted it, I could click that. Some of this, like these things are usually highlightable as well, where they're linkable, so I could probably link straight from there. I get to the point where I don't ever even really look at my next, like this view is like totally obsolete to me, scheduled is totally obsolete, because they come up through weekly reviews, so like I'm not going to look at those. And then you've got projects. So a great example is there's a Somerton Tamale Festival. It's just a little town outside of Yuma. They have this really great tamale festival. They want a Gangplank. They asked if I could come down and take a look at some stuff. And they said, I said, well, wouldn't it be a good time to come down and talk to you guys? They said, well, we have this really great tamale festival. So they're great. We've got an RV. Let's do it, right? So it's like, okay, I need to. Where we talked about the 72 Pontiac thing, right? What's this? Email. So I think I deleted it, but I had one that was. Oh no, here it was. So I sent an email to the guy and said, are there great RV parks? He sent me back this digital publication list, right? So I click on that and I go find 4 parks and I put email the parks that look like don't cater to under 55s. Call them, okay, yep, they got the response back that they are an under 55, so now I need to book it. Right? So now I've got a thing to book it, and it's going to remind me on Friday that I need to book it. Okay? So it's going to show up in my today list Friday at midnight or Friday at 12 a.m., 12:01 in the morning. It's going to show up in my to-do for me to do. So when I'm in the shower, I'm not thinking, I got to go book this thing for this. I know it's going to happen because I trust that my system works. Right? And then kind of a next action, it's not scheduled, is, hey, I need to let them know that we're coming. All right, well, I'm not going to do that until I book this because I might change my mind before I book it. I might get to the point where, we decide we never want to go. When I do that, I'm going to book it, and then I'm going to create a whole bunch of new actions on this. Right? I'm going to create a whole bunch. Maybe I need to go gas up the RV. Maybe I need to go bring it back. Have all these other things around it. Okay? And then it's got a 2-day date where you can say, hey, this is when it's done. And then, hey, when it's done, then it disappears. It goes away. I don't have to think about it anymore. And so I've got all sorts of projects in here. Right? And so then these are my areas, right? So I'm doing work with Pearson, I'm doing work with Canada Unified School, with ASU Poly, I'm a board member of a local thing, kind of RV life, which is a lot of like stuff on maintaining the RV and doing stuff like that. Tattoo stuff. At one time we were getting ready to do a tattoo parlor, so I had a bunch of things in there. I left it there because I've not given up that dream entirely, so it might still happen someday, right? But it's probably not got anything active. It's not got anything in the next project. It's off, right? So I got a bunch of these different things, speaking engagements, different whatever. And then I've got contacts. Now, one of the things that's somewhat nice from a contacts perspective is one of the things that is really difficult when you get really good at this and you trust yourself and you're confident in yourself and you know you're getting stuff done is you have to deal with people who do not have this tool and do not use it. And when I say this tool, I don't mean things, I mean the ability to get things done. And you're going to have to delegate crap to them. And it's really painful to deal with delegating things to other people. Because you don't want it in your crap anymore and cluttering up your crap, but you don't want to get rid of it because you need to be able to follow up. Otherwise your brain's going to be like, oh man, I saw Tim, what do I need to talk to Tim about, right? So the nice thing about things is it lets me take things that are there and I can basically drag them into like, okay, maybe I need to talk to my wife about that first. And now you'll see that it has her name next to it, which means that she's involved in that or I'm relying on her to do it. The thing I love about this is there's a lot of these people I don't talk to every day. So if I'm going and I have a meeting, I'm going home and we're doing a weekly review, whatever, my wife, I can just go on this and here's all the stuff that are open queues for her. So if I've got time with her, or Jeff, or Jen, or whoever, I can say, hey, where do we sit with this? Right? So now when I interact with them, I can say, like, hey, what's going on? When I'm doing my weekly review, I can say, like, do I need to have meetings with these people? Here's these people that I deal with all the time. Why do I have stuff out there? What's out there for them? Do I need to meet with them? Maybe I need to schedule a meeting. Maybe I need to send an email. Maybe I just need to send a reminder. So this is, for my, up here you can see that you hear my things, like things that need to be printed. I don't have anything for phone. True Value, I need to get keys made. I tried to do it at Walmart, which is where normally we'll have like my grocery store one. They didn't have the key that I wanted, so they told me True Value. So I was like, okay, next time I'm at True Value. And it's on a timer, so it'll come in there. Right. Any questions about this?
What if you don't have a Mac?
There are like a ton of other programs out there. If you look for like getting things done, productivity, there's a ton of web-based stuff. There's a ton of Windows-based stuff. You can use a spreadsheet. I mean, the thing that I really like about things more than any other product is I think they really stay true to what David put forward. Meaning they name everything the exact same thing. Like, I can't show it here because of the way it works, but anything that comes into my to-do box at 12:01 is going to actually end up at the top of the screen up here in bright yellow saying these are new things that landed in your box since yesterday. And I can either hit a button and say, nope, I don't really want to do them today, go schedule them another time. Or I can click a button and it throws them right back into their category. They actually use this exactly how he designed. So it actually, if you're trying to really follow it, it does really, really well. A lot of the other tools kind of go like, no, I don't understand areas of focus, so I'm not going to include those. Or I don't understand this, so I'm not going to include it. Or you can do it, but there's this really hacky way where you have to use a tag and a whatever, and it's a pain, which is why I use this tool. But, I mean, you could use anything. I mean, I did this for 3 years with no tool. It was basically paper.
Just don't get something that can do everything. It's like crazy configurable.
Yeah. And then that's the problem, is most of them had some to-do list, and they tried to bastardize it to be GTD, and the way they did that is like, oh, use tags and use categories and use all this stuff that, like, it's so, like, if you don't know what you're doing, it's too hard to, like, I'm pretty familiar with all the terminology and functionality, and it would be hard for me to configure it. So if it's like you're just starting out the gate, like, it's too hard. So if you try to get something, I think Wonderlist is a pretty common one. It's a web-based one. It's got an iPhone piece. I've heard pretty good things about it. I don't like it because I like to be able to highlight, put, and have a link right back. And I didn't have that before. Once they came out with it, like, I don't know if I'll ever leave this product unless something else does the same thing. Because, like, it's my bread and butter.
Any comments about social media? Spend more time, less time, same amount of time?
So I think the key to that is in all things, it's balance, right? Like, so, you know, as part of that, like a lot of things, I'll just schedule or bake in, right? So if, you're gonna have times where when you actually have a bunch of your stuff done, like mostly when I use social media is when I don't have, it's usually mobile, when I don't have any context that's available to me. Right? So I'm sitting here waiting for somebody to show up, and I have limited internet, I don't have my computer out, I don't have any phone calls to make, I've got time. I'm gonna play Words with Friends, or something similar, or I'm gonna go check Twitter or Facebook statuses, or whatever, or that's what I use my fun time for. So when I was taking those things, it's like, hey, I've got the fun time. It's like, hey, I'm gonna start something. I'm gonna do 15 minutes, and if I'm in a flow, I'll do another 15 minutes. In my flow, I'll do another 15. Hey, my butt's kind of sore. I'm gonna get up and go walk around, go pet the cat, go say hi to the kids, do whatever. Hey, that's a fun thing, right? Or hey, I'm at the office, and it's like, hey, I've been going. I'm gonna get up and play Street Fighter for 10 minutes, and I'm gonna go check Twitter, and then I'm gonna go launch back in. So I don't think it's necessarily more or less. I think that instead of that as such, and it's the same thing with mail, right? Like if you get to the point where you're just like every time the mail comes up, you've got to go read your mail and check your mail. You never get anything done because you're a slave. Like your instant in is the like the ding, the ding, the ding, right? Same way with it's like, hey, I obsessively have to check social media. Like you become a slave to that. Where if you just say like, hey, I'm still going to do that. I'm probably going to spend the same amount of time. But the time it takes to go from what I'm doing to opening this up, looking at it, doing it, and then get my focus back is a lot longer than what it takes to read that email or what it takes to do that tweet. So if you say, like, hey, I'm going to be totally focused on this for 15 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever that is, and then I'm going to give myself permission to spend however much time I want to do that, and I'm going to go back to focus, you'll find you do a lot more, and you'll probably spend more time on social media and other things because you actually have more time to do it.
David Allen talks a lot about checking your email only 3 times a day. Morning, noon, and
Yeah.
before you leave.
Any other questions?
When do you do your daily review?
So my daily review, I usually do at night if I'm not exhausted when I get home, or I'll do it first thing when I get in the office. Sometimes I won't get to do a daily review, so I don't always get to do it, but usually it's the first thing I do before I do real work. So if I don't have like a meeting to go to, it's the first thing I do, right? Because it's like, well, what am I going to do today? I don't know. I need to go look. That's my daily review. Weekly review I do on Sunday nights, and that's just because when everybody's in bed, I've got time to do it. So, Sunday night. Other questions?
So no collaboration needed?
As far as
Like your team members?
so to me, this is the downside of GDD. I really love GDD. It kicks total ass. To me, it is not multi-person friendly. And part of that is you're talking alignment, purpose, all these things that are highly personal to you. Productivity is highly personal. So what I do is I've got 2 teams that I work with in reality. One of those teams is my family. And we've got a Kanban board for our family. So the stuff that is like stuff that I owe them, that I collaborate with them on, that we do together, goes on that board. It's not in this system. The other one is my work family. And so the work that I do with them goes in either a Scrum board or whatever we decide as a team to use. That's what we use, and it doesn't go in here. So it's a kind of a sucky thing, right? Because hey, if I'm at home, I've got it in a couple of places. But to me, those aren't they're my commitments, but they're not my commitments because those are commitments I'm making with other people, right? So I refuse to power through those commitments as being solely mine. So I'm willing to defer to whatever their preference of managing that work is. And believe me, I bitch about it a lot. You can ask Jade or anybody else I work with. I bitch about it a lot that a lot of systems we use I think suck, but hey, sometimes you gotta make compromise to work with other people.
How much time would you say for someone who's getting started? Would you recommend like a burst and taper where like they sit down and map out a big organizational strategy and then go implement it? Or
Half day to a day, capture the data, man. First thing, half day to a day, just capture all the data, get it all in there. And once you have it in there, then you can start to say like, what are my areas of focus? You can start to turn some of those things into projects and next actions. But the first thing you got to do is just get it in a place where you can start to do that stuff. I think if you try to do too much of the like, what's the giant, big picture, everything right away, like you're probably so stuck in the quagmire of not being able to do stuff, you're gonna suck at that right now, right? So what you gotta do is just get in there, get into the process, and then as you start to be able to manage that, then you can start to say, okay, now I can start to say, what are my goals? What are some of this? I think you can start it the other way, but I think it's really hard to do those things.
Just bite at a time.
Yeah.
David Allen says no planning and no sorting.
Yeah. Just get in there, man. No problem. Any other questions? Is there any interest in doing like a follow-on session that would be maybe like a work thing if we wanted to set a time for people to come in and if you wanted to try to process some of your stuff or do a daily review where you could ask questions and say like, well, I've got this, how would I do that? How would I capture this? Or how would I do that? Or is it, I mean, I'll set something up if there's enough interest. If there's not interest, then I won't. I was hoping that half of this session would be that, but I forget this. There's a lot of crap underneath this, and I talk way too much.
Yeah, I mean, but I would also love like a things, using things like more of a deep dive, just because, like I saw your other GTD presentation, that's when I started using it, but then I'm like, I get stuck, I have too much stuff in the inbox, you know, I have too much stuff that comes over. So just, like even just seeing the way that you organize projects versus areas
Right.
is different from how I
Right.
interpreted it before.
And I mean, the nice thing too is like your projects belong to areas of focus. So if I go into, like you see there's a project in here, right? So you can look at it by project or you can look at it by area. Areas might have, multiple projects inside of them, right? You've got scheduled items. So yeah, it's a lot of power you can do. I don't know if you can see with the colors, but it shows you kind of a percentage done to inside of those by color. And you can see it, there's colors inside there. Not that I use that at all. But. All right. Well, if you guys have any more questions, I'll gladly answer them, but I don't want to hold people hostage.
Is there a similar tool that I could use with the Gmail? Or is that?
So so there's I think a plugin for GTD for Gmail.
Okay.
I have not used it, so I don't know much about it. If you installed it and played around with it and had questions, I could probably look at it and answer questions for you, but I have not played with it.